Good people of Awesemo, welcome to the Tip-Off, the show that sets the stage for all the most important news, daily fantasy plays, and bets on tonight's 9-game NBA slate, 6-game MLB slate. I am your host, Kayla Knierim. Welcome. Happy Thursday. Joining us on the show today, we've got Dr. Ben Rasa, Chris Spags. Do you want something before your name, Spags? Feels weird to call you Chris.
No, I mean, the beloved, the reviled, I guess really something that evokes something either way I think I'd support. But no, I have no doctor title. I didn't go to money doctor school at the University of Phoenix, so I have nothing to offer up in that sense.
True. Ben, how's it going?
Good. You know, Thursday, moving along, Preakness Stakes week. All is good with the world. Good start to golf for a change. Not everything is perfect, but yeah, I'm happy to be here. Pretty excited, actually.
The spacing on YouTube right now is funny.
Yeah, it's a poor. That's why I didn't say anything, by the way. I was so thrown off at what's going on.
I look like a giant next to you.
Yeah, I look like a little dwarf guy, but that's all right. You know, win some, you lose some.
Honestly, Ben looks like the ancillary character who would go along with a princess on her journey, like a little like Toad
wrong.
with Princess Peach. I think that's currently the vibes on the street.
Well, we do like to keep it Disney themed on here, so we're just going along with that. All right. All of you out there, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for countless hours of content on the NBA, MLB, NHL, PGA, MMA, NASCAR, and every other sport that is in season. We want to talk to you about our sponsor, No House Advantage, who is taking a different spin on daily fantasy sports by offering player prop contests across the NBA, MLB, NFL, and PGA for cash prizes. This exclusively peer-to-peer fantasy sports platform levels the playing field and makes it easier for you to win real cash compared with your traditional DFS sites. With over 500 player props offerings, No House Advantage is the largest provider of player props in the industry, and the best part is that you will receive a $20 first match deposit bonus today with promo code Awesemo. Beat your friends, not the house. Download in the App Store and win big with player props today. Spags, is everything okay over there?
No, it's just our guy Scott in the YouTube chat. Scott's always good for a one-liner, and he said Bilbo Rasa. It just
that's good stuff.
Just got me the right way. So kudos to Scott. And yeah, nothing. Kayla, you read perfectly. I'm sorry to take away from our sponsor at No House Advantage the attention that they so richly deserve. But yeah, Bilbo Rasa got me on that one.
I didn't have the Zoom open. I could just hear wheezing in the background.
That's me trying to stifle the laughter here, not get the giggles too early, but it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen a lot today, I feel like.
It happens, it happens. It's good for the soul. All right, let's dive into our bad beats. The NBA continues to be in its silliest season for injuries, while the PGA and MLB truck on as usual. How has it looked for you guys? Spags, let's start with you. Giggles.
Yeah, yesterday was thank you. I'll take Giggles. I could be Dr. Giggles, who I think is a horror movie from the early 90s. I would say for me yesterday was really, I wouldn't say tilting. It was just more like, I don't know what I did wrong. And I mentioned this on the MLB strategy show early this morning, early live before lock rather with Greg. So make sure you're watching those if you are a baseball fan trying to get in some early MLB slate action. But just mentioned like yesterday, I feel like I got a lot of guys right. Got Taylor Horton-Tucker right. Got Drummond right. Did the requisite amount of Westbrook. Still was heavily above the field on him. And I still ended up losing a little bit at the end of the night. And I was just like, I know the field's so sharp now. I know the NBA. We're going to talk about it a lot today. It's a moving target, just figuring out who's going to be available and what their opportunities are, because there's so many lineups that aren't normally in rotation throughout the year. But I just feel like yesterday, I really thought I did a good job with NBA. And at the end of the night, I was like, oh yeah, all right, I guess that was just a day of trade and paint here in the NBA DFS world.
Yeah, I mean, it was all right, honestly. Yesterday it was hit and miss. The Blazers was key for me, and they played great. They decisively were in control of that game against Utah. The Wizards was a bet though that I was on, and I felt basically comfortable the entire game. And Hawks made a run late. They had looks. Bertans had a wide open three to tie that game late, and it didn't get there. So, you know, all in all, I don't think it was too unlucky, to be honest, but it did put a damper on the early part of my NBA slate last night.
Now I have the giggles. It looks like Ben is in like, honey, we shrunk ourselves.
Yeah, I gotta talk to the man behind the glass after this. This is yeah, that's right. He throws up the hands. Don't make like you have no part in this. No respect. As I lose my voice here 5 minutes into the show, it's a real poor effort so far.
We honestly might need to. I know Laffy had previously sent Ben a lab coat. Perhaps the next thing to set up is a booster seat for these.
Times are tough. What can I say?
Oh no. Okay, let's get into our NBA news. We have a shorter show today and a lot to get to, so we're going to get to it and try not to get too distracted by Ben. All right. Malcolm Brogdon and Edmund Sumner will be out again for Indiana, while Karis LeVert and Aaron Holiday are questionable. How does the situation look for Domantas Sabonis and company versus Milwaukee, Dr. Rasa?
So, I mean, obviously, if he's on an island by himself, he's going to be extremely busy in this game. They're a sizable dog at home, 9-point underdogs, 243 total. So massive total in this game as well. And the Pacers, I mean, they're not in a must win mode by any stretch. They're going to be in the playoffs in some capacity, but I'm sure they want to move up within this play-in tournament as much as they can. So Sabonis is obviously going to be busy. We have to see what's up with LeVert and Holiday. If for some reason they were both ruled out, I mean, Spags, that would open up a ton of minutes in the backcourt. They'd be extremely thin. And pretty much, TJ McConnell and co would be thrust into major usage. So I think we need to wait and see. Sabonis, of course, is firmly in play, but you're also paying 10-7, which is a massive price tag on him. All in all, it's not the best spot for the Pacers, regardless of who's in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see how this game goes because I also don't get what Milwaukee's doing playing their guys right now. Giannis played mostly his normal run last time out against Orlando. I don't know if they're just trying to keep him in game shape, but it does seem like I'm not really sure what they're playing for in terms of seeding. It seems like they're locked into a pretty good position right now. We were talking before the show. They're currently slated to be facing the Knicks, so that can blow around in a couple different directions depending upon how the Hawks and Heat and Knicks do over the next few games. But this spot to me, I think it's hard to prognosticate or to look at really right now because I do think that, LeVert and Holiday being out is a major game changer, but because the Pacers seem to still be playing full speed ahead, I think that I would think they're going to make a go in this one just because you need to get those bodies out there. But if they're out, I think they are going to make TJ McConnell, as Ben mentioned, look like a much better play. I think right now Sabonis as well is going to be a good play regardless of those guys being in and out. He's been one of the better players in the league over the last few weeks with Brogdon being sidelined. Assist rate for him jumps to about 35%, a little bit higher than that. The usage has been pretty flat. Rebounding's been higher because of having no Miles Turner out there. So Sabonis is in play either way, but I think if you get LeVert and Holiday out, you're probably going to have a lot of TJ McConnell tonight.
Joel Embiid is questionable again after he missed last game and resulted in a chalk Dwight Howard disappointment. Spags, do you think Embiid plays tonight versus Miami, and who benefits if he sits?
This is one that got weirder between the time of putting this run sheet into our Slack and everybody can take a look at it and figure it out. And then some news came out that Joel Embiid is not even in Miami right now, but I guess there's still a chance he could play tonight. So there's a lot of ambiguity about the situation that I really don't know what to make of it. Dwight Howard, if he does pick up the start, we saw it last game. You probably don't want to play a lot of him. He could certainly get minutes, but there's no real reason for them to run him into the ground either with this team, either probably going to be a 1 or 2 seed barring something weird happening the last few days. So I do think, with this spot for Philadelphia, another one you have to watch the news for. It's a very important news item because you could get a little more increased productivity from Ben Simmons and Tobias Harris in particular. And then you could potentially get a Dwight Howard start because there is a good amount of size and Bam Adebayo on the other side. So I think one that you have to watch closely, but I feel like it's hard to get to Miami all of a sudden and play a game when you're already kind of sick. So I think Embiid's probably more likely to not play today.
Yeah, weird situation. As you mentioned, kind of the news gets weirder and we saw him sit. Obviously, Tobias Harris, that was in the prop world, if you jumped on that right when the news happened, you stole at least a couple points. He gets the major usage bump. Certainly Simmons is going to have to do his part. And then you've got the peripherals, whether it's Curry and obviously Dwight will pick up some minutes. But I think the guy, in terms of the usage is Tobias Harris, and the Sixers are trying to lock up everything as well. They're a slight dog on the road here against Miami. Gut feel, I'm with you. I kind of feel like Embiid isn't going to play, so we'll have to react accordingly. I don't think it'll be as, that came from the clouds the other day. Obviously here we already know that he's questionable. We just kind of have to confirm if he's ruled in. Kind of a wash game. I mean, this isn't one of the most appealing. 217.5 total is one of the lowest on the slate.
In that same game, Jimmy Butler is currently questionable for Miami. Ben, who stands to benefit if Butler is out?
Yeah, so again, this is a team that I feel like we've gotten this situation probably, a good amount during the year. And we've talked about the Heat, Jimmy Butler being questionable. And usually it's, if he plays, it makes it even worse in a lot of capacity. I don't have a lot of interest in any of these guys. And then if he sits, obviously, everyone kind of steps up, whether it's Dragic and Hero, they use a rotation and whatnot. Trevor Ariza's there, and obviously Bam on the interior. So I still look at this game, though, and I look at this team. I don't think a ton of ownership is going to be allocated to Miami, but I think that's probably warranted. And just looking at our premium projections right now, no one really screams value. Now, if Butler does sit and his 30 minutes are allocated elsewhere, obviously it's going to boost guys like Dragic, even none to an extent, Ariza on the wing, but it still, to me, doesn't make them a massive play on a slate this big.
Yeah, I think to me, the guy who would become really appealing is Goran Dragic. I think he's on the cusp of playability right now, the chance that Butler is in. And I think, if you do get Butler out, you're just going to see the increase in rates that we know come for Dragic, that come for Kendrick Nunn, though Nunn really is, the minutes are more the big part for him getting there. Tyler Hero as well would stand to benefit too. So I think really just upgrading those three guys, if you get Butler out, is the key part. And Bam Adebayo, I think too, seeing that rate increase, there's a situation now where you could get Butler out. You could also get Embiid out. I think that's a pretty big increase on Adebayo's potential prospects here. So I think he's a guy too, that if Butler is out, you could certainly give him a pretty big upgrade here and hope get him into some lineups as a tournament play that probably won't pick up a ton of ownership.
Michael Porter Jr. will join the usual injured Nuggets on the sidelines tonight in a game with a high total versus Minnesota. Spags, which Denver players benefit with another high usage scorer out?
So it looks like the big minute beneficiary, according to the minutes projections at Awesemo right now, will be JaMychal Green. Paul Millsap also expected to get some more minutes, and Green has in the past started some games that Porter's been out, but it is a spot for me that I'm not entirely sure that's the case. So that's one where if the minutes are there, if you get a JaMychal Green start, it's going to look like a better value player, one of the better value plays on the slate. If you don't get that start, I think you probably are a little bit more reluctant to play him. And if he's a chalky play, especially, probably good to mute that exposure. But the big beneficiary, I think, has to be Nikola Jokic. The rates for him have been obviously very good all year long without Jamal Murray, without Will Barton. Now you're adding another guy in there, and the rates for Jokic, not the biggest sample size. I think it was 150 minutes or so, but you're looking at about a 35% usage rate. The assist rate doesn't drop that much. You're going to get a few more rebounds because Porter's been a pretty prolific rebounder. So I think maybe Jokic going there heavily, as long as, Denver is starting, I think, or, is playing full speed ahead, I think is the key part to know in advance, because I think they have some questionable motivations too right now. And I think one thing to watch out for too, a Vlatko Cansar start wouldn't be the craziest thing in the world here. That's a name that a lot of people out there are going to be the craziest about. But I do think if you get JaMychal Green not starting, he's another guy who would be very cheap today, no matter what site you're playing on, who could just end up seeing starter run if you do get, no JaMychal Green starting.
Yeah, certainly JaMychal Green right now is projecting, and ownership-wise, he could be the highest owned player on the slate if the news breaks his way. But this is a team, I hate to play this game, but we're at that time of the year. They're sitting in the 4 seed. They can't drop below 4. They can get up to 3. It's not a ton of motivation. Obviously, Jokic has talked about all year that he's just playing. Like, he's going to be the MVP probably for that reason. But they are getting really thin. Obviously, Jamal Murray goes down and they've held it together. But without Porter here, I do worry a little bit about what this rotation looks like. And, it's a game that shouldn't be competitive, but it's absolutely going to be. They're 2.5-point favorite against Minnesota. So the line says it all. This is not a blowout situation by any regard. So I get the value play with Green, and I get looking to some of these guys. And obviously you can always pay up for the MVP, but I don't think Denver is a team that we have firm motivation for right now. And I think that leads, some more uncertainty than usual.
Marvin Bagley and Harrison Barnes are doubtful again, while De'Aaron Fox and Tyrese Halliburton remain out. Ben, which Kings are priorities tonight versus Memphis?
So Metu is another value play for sure. 4,100, going to be very popular. There's no doubt about that. The Kings are just out of players. At one point this year, they looked okay. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but it seemed like Sacramento was possibly going to be able to get in the play-in tournament. Didn't end up getting there. I guess technically, but it's not going to happen, and they've just run out of personnel. So you just look at the bodies there. You've got Holmes and whatnot, but Metu's the guy that I think stands out the most. Maybe, I don't know, Terrence Davis, 59. I really don't know on a 9-game slate if you have to look to them. They're in a middling price tag. Doesn't scream value. And then, of course, Buddy Hield's always going to be, an option in the sense that he's electric from 3 and he can get hot. But I think more and more against the Grizzlies here, I'm not going to mess around outside of Metu.
Yeah, Metu is, I think, the obvious play. It's going to be very chalky on DraftKings in particular and have a good amount of ownership on Fanduel as well. But I do think that Metu is a play. I have some confidence in the minutes. I have a little bit less confidence in his usage rate, which has been down a little bit in core time amidst the starters. So I think that's something to keep in mind. Delon Wright still in play for me in tournaments as well. I think he's been steady enough as a producer. The price tag is high enough that people won't be flocking to him quite as much, but certainly has the ability that we've seen multiple times to get 55, 60 fantasy points in the mix. But I think Terrence Davis is one that jumps out to me as really having more appeal. He's been basically playing the backup point guard in minutes where Wright's off the floor. The assist rate for him is also taking a jump up. He's getting a good amount of shots up too. It's 25% use rate for him this court time recently, where Halliburton and De'Aaron Fox have both been out. So I think those are the main guys that jump out. But really, if you just mix in, one king in most lineups that you have tonight, I think that's a pretty decent move here, because there's a good chance here that somebody pops up, and it could be one of the cheap guys. But I do think Metu, very chalky ownership, and I don't think it's a guarantee he's the only king that produces in a meaningful way today.
Toronto will be without OG Anunoby, Kyle Lowry, Chris Boucher, Aaron Baines, Rodney Hood, Pascal Siakam, and Fred VanVleet in their game versus Chicago. Spags, which of the remaining Raptors can you trust tonight?
So I don't know. Trusting is sort of a tough word because there's going to be 8 guys available today, or at least, barring some weird roster move that we don't know about right now, should be 8 guys available today. And the result to me is that I think all these guys are going to be in play. The ones that jump out the most to me, Malachi Flynn has had a 25% usage rate and a 30% assist rate in court time. Not the most court time with all those guys, but still over 100 minutes. So it is a somewhat meaningful sample to look to in a relative, situation where you're not going to find a lot of meaningful samples to look at. But I think the guy that I'm the most confident in because of the price tag difference is going to be Yuta Watanabe. He's a guy who's cheap. He produces a good amount in the way of rebounds and assists and does get some usage. I think if he picks up the start, he's a guy that really could have the upside here to be useful at a price tag that I think is reasonable. So Gary Trent, you can take your tournament flyers on. Really, the rest of these guys, Freddie Gillespie, another cheap guy you can take flyers on. Names that are not household names by any stretch, but because it's only 8 bodies in the rotation, you could sort of make the case for anybody. I think the strongest case is going to be for Malachi Flynn and for Yuta Watanabe.
Yeah, Malachi Flynn is someone we've seen this situation throughout the year when Lowry went down. He was a guy that filled in admirably. And today, all of them, anyone who's wearing Raptors jerseys in play, you mentioned a bunch of guys. Jalen Harris would be another one, obviously. These guys, they're going to push for 30 minutes. Their prices are extremely cheap. Fill up the peripherals. They'll have opportunity. The usage is up for grabs. And he's a guy that, again, not a household name, but if he pushes for upwards 25 to 30 minutes, absolutely can make value at 38. So you look at these guys, a couple Raptors in lineups tonight, even though they're a sizable dog, the Bulls, they're in trouble, but they absolutely need the game to keep their heartbeat alive. They're 11-point home favorite against these Raptors. They're going to kill them, but these guys, it doesn't really matter with blowout risk because they don't have bodies. It's not like they can pull, they only got 3 guys on the bench. So fire up as many Raptors as you can in some of these lineups.
All right, exciting new Awesemo Plus users with nearly every DFS sport in season and the NBA and NHL heading into playoffs. It's a great time to be a DFS player. Pick up your first month of Awesemo Plus Platinum for 25% off when you use promo code GOLDRUSH. That's promo code GOLDRUSH, one word, all caps. This includes full access to all the premium content and tools on Awesemo.com, including player projections, ownership projections, our premium Slack channel, lineup builder, and much more. Don't miss this one. Stop guessing, start winning. Join Awesemo Plus today. Football season is around the corner. NFL Week 1 odds are here. We talked about it briefly yesterday, but the full NFL schedule is out and Vegas lines are plentiful for the first week of action. It can be hard to prognosticate. Spags loves that word. NFL games months before training camp, let alone preseason. But how do we feel about the lines for some of the big Week 1 games? We're going to start with Cowboys at Buccaneers. Bucs are favored by 6.5 in a game with an over/under of 52. Spags, let's start with you.
This is one to me that I think taking the over appeals to me, but I also think taking the Cowboys to cover, is going to be a spot that I would definitely want to go to. I think the Cowboys, to me, a team that offensively is going to be obviously looking a lot better than they did last year. Dak Prescott being back in, getting paid as well. You still have the rest of the weapons there at wide receiver. Ezekiel Elliott, hopefully a little more meaningfully involved after kind of taking a downturn with the rest of the offense. So I would say to me, this one, I like the Cowboys to cover. And I think, the over maybe a little bit more in question, but I think if you see the Cowboys win, the over probably gets a good amount more probable because you're going to see Brady throwing more and Dak certainly rushing around and doing the best he can to get that offense moving. So to me, taking the Cowboys to cover and taking the over, an appealing little duo of bets to make for opening night.
So it's one of these situations, obviously, football, as some of our people in chat have pointed out, we got some time here, but you can steal some value. Or if you know what you're doing, you can wait. Like the over is going to push up. And if you like the Cowboys, you absolutely should wait because getting 6.5 is no good. If it moves, you can cross 7, you get 7.5. That's a huge number. If you like the Bucs, you would probably want to take this line now. I'm with Spags, though. It would be Cowboys. I actually like the under, though, at first glance. I think they've tried to address this defense. We'll see how much better they are, but this is a team with Tampa. They've got everyone back. It's pretty crazy. As much as I hate Tom Brady, I respect his ability to build these super teams. So it's a situation with a game like this. I have no interest in betting it now because the positions I think that I want to be on will improve in time.
Next up, we've got Cardinals at Titans. Titans favored by 2.5 in a game with an over/under of 51, Ben.
Yeah, so this is an interesting game. Obviously, the Cardinals were a team at times last year. They showed flashes. They ultimately ran out of gas, and then they had no quarterback in their last game against the Rams, and they needed that game. And then you look on the other side, The only thing I've seen from the Titans in the offseason was that video of Derrick Henry doing push-ups with like weights and chains on his back. I don't know if anyone saw that, but he looks pretty much ready. So for that reason, laying 2.5 with the Titans, I'm going to go there. They're just a solid team. I really respect what Rabel has done there. And honestly, Arizona work in progress still for me in the West.
I think this is one that to me, this is something that where the Lions come out, and I think people may be a little more excited about these offenses being a little bit higher paced or faster paced than they might be. But the Cardinals and Titans are two teams that have run the ball a lot historically, including last year. And the Titans are going to have an offensive overhaul of some sort, I guess, because of not having Arthur Smith there running things. Now he'll be down in Atlanta doing the best he can to get what he can out of Matt Ryan and company. But I think this game to me, over under a 51 is really high. And I'm sort of reluctant to bet over unders this early, but to me, it feels like one that should be in the high 40s at a max. The fact that it's this high, unless there's something drastically different about these offenses this year, and I don't think there's any reason to believe that there should be. It's still Mike Vrabel as the head coach. He's still going to play it close to the vest. You still have Derrick Henry there. You still have Kyler Murray on the other side. So I think to me, this is a matchup of running games more than anything. And I think taking the under on this one right away just jumps out as a bet that the line's just too high right now.
Next up, we've got the Chargers at Washington. Chargers are favored by 1 in this one, and with an over under of 44.5. Spags, what do we think about this?
This is one where I like the over a lot, and I also like Washington to win. So if you could somehow get that money line combined with the over on it, I think that's a good move. I'm a big believer in what Washington's going to do. I do think that having Ryan Fitzpatrick in is something that people are going to really underrate. And I think you guys out there who've played fantasy or played DFS, whatever bet, or even just bet on games, you know what Ryan Fitzpatrick brings to the table as a thrower. And that's good. He's going to move the chains downfield. He's going to target the guys downfield. He's going to target Terry McLaurin. He's going to make the most he can of whatever weapons he has. And I think this is a spot to me that this line, maybe more defensive minded is the hopes that they're going to have for this game that Vegas is having. But I think in this spot, it's going to be a Justin Herbert, Ryan Fitzpatrick shootout. And to me right away, I don't get why this line is that low. And I think it's one that it has to come up a little bit over the course of the next few months.
Yeah, that is an interesting total. Honestly, 44.5, 45 is a key number because 24-21 is a score that can happen a lot in football. So if you like that, you want to take that over, probably one to jump on. I do think on the other side, though, this screams like a trap. I feel like the Chargers, everybody loves Justin Herbert. They're a team that I think people are really excited about. And then you look at Washington, who really knows what's going on there. So I have a feeling this is a spread that the public will be on, I almost said San Diego. But you look at them, we'll see what that defense can do if they can get Derwin James back and co. I think that's a really strong division. Obviously, Kansas City is still the heavy favorite. We'll see what happens with Denver. But in terms of the spread on this game right now, I'll be honest, I really don't know what to go. My mind says Chargers easy, but I'm stunned that it was only 1. So that does give me some hesitation. I'm going to join you, though, on that over. I think I may lock that in right after the show.
Well, how about that?
Look at that. 44.5 is a good number. You're right, Spags. That is a little low considering where these teams are at.
And people in the chat not getting what we're talking about. The schedule came out yesterday. The lines came out shortly after. So it's hot off the presses. This is the time where if you're going to make these bets, it's obviously you don't know everything as much as you can. I do like knowing more than less, but there's going to be inefficient lines even for the NFL when they come out this early. And that's something you can take advantage of as best you can, especially if you are shopping for odds with a site like OddsShopper.
The NFL season is upon us. Get excited, people. Don't question it. The Browns will be taking a trip to the best stadium in the NFL to play the Chiefs, who will be this year's Super Bowl champions. The Chiefs are favored by 6 in a game with an over under of 53 points. Spags, break this one down for us.
Well, I think there might have been a little editorializing there about the Chiefs. And I would say overall,
I went off script.
No, I'm with you. I think the Chiefs are one team in the greater Missouri area that I think we can all support. They are clearly a team that I think is going to be coming with a bad taste in their mouth from the offseason and the Super Bowl and all these situations for them where they were pretty much embarrassed in a way that I think they have to rally from and really come back in a strong way. And I think, the time off they're going to have getting some guys healthy, especially one Patrick Mahomes, who we know was very banged up down the home stretch of last year. They've also made some changes at offensive line. So I think you have a lot of narratives here where I think the Chiefs are going to come out slinging it as much as possible this year. I think the Browns are probably a little bit overvalued in betting markets. It wouldn't shock me to see them gain a lot of steam as a dark horse team to win the Super Bowl, which is kind of the case every year with the Browns, who were good last year, but they are not as good as the Chiefs. And I think especially a healthy Chiefs team starting the year as healthy as they're going to be all year long, I think that's really important to me. So I would just take the Chiefs and really to take this one right now, I think, and I wouldn't change for me even if the line went up a little bit by a few more points.
Yeah, I mean, in Arrowhead, tough spot for the Browns. I mean, you always get these matchups, these repeats of some of the big-time playoff teams to start the year. But this is one I don't think they can set this total high enough. The teams are just so high octane, up pace. I respect the Browns defense, but obviously the Chiefs are going to get theirs. And as much as the Browns are the Browns, they did take some steps and they do have a ton of weapons for Baker. So I look at this, although I do lean Chiefs winning the game pretty comfortably, I do think Cleveland, in terms of their team total and whatnot, will be able to hang around. So this one could land certainly in the 60s, in my opinion. I do lean over 53.
With you both. All right, Bears at Rams. Rams are favored by 7 in a game with an over-under of 45, Ben.
Yeah, it's a tough thing. I mean, obviously, I think people are excited about Stafford, but you just don't know exactly what you're going to get. It is a new offense for him. He's been in Detroit a long, long time. I do think the Rams have some things working, and I get why they're a favorite by a touchdown here, but it's not a game that I'm really interested in at first glance. So I look at that 7, it's right on a key number. 45 is another key number. As Spags said, the reason that we're doing this is because some of these lines, you're able to take advantage of value. You're able to take advantage of numbers. This is a game right now. I think waiting is the value, because maybe this pushes to 7.5. Maybe this pushes to 44.5 or 45.5. And that makes a huge difference in the line.
Yeah, I think to me, this is one that I get what Ben's saying about that. I think there is some validity too. If the line does move in a direction that's going to benefit you for sure, that could be an asset. But I'm comfortable taking the over on this one right now. And we talked about it briefly on yesterday's show, where I think this game, the Sunday night opener, I think the Rams are going to come out in a major way with Stafford. I think that he is really a quarterback that it'd be nice if he had a little more mobility, because I think that's what Sean McVay was looking for the most, which we saw through that run at the end of the year where Jared Goff got benched. We saw him really push towards a little more ability with John Wolford. I think in this spot, for Matthew Stafford, he's going to be a deep ball thrower that they haven't had in a while. And I also expect the Bears on the other side to be starting Justin Fields by day one. I don't know how you could start the season in good conscience with Andy Dalton as your QB. And the Rams defense, one thing we know with the NFL year in, year out is that defense is one of the least sticky metrics year to year. Even if you have crazy talent, you see teams year after year just go from being number one in defense to being in the middle of the pack, or, more of a top 10 team. I think the Rams are very capable of fitting that profile, even with the guys they have in tow. So this game being a shootout early, I do like the Bears to cover. I think that one is a little more risk to it. This is one, to me, it's a too low of a line. I think the Bears offense is going to be one that I am very excited to see, come to form this year. And I think that first game, we're going to see both the Bears and the Rams on both sides just bring it in a major way.
So many question marks, so much excitement. I cannot wait. All right, let's head to the diamond now for some top bets and plays on tonight's MLB DFS slate for biggest bat. Which of these top 5 odds getters on OddsShopper do you think is the best overall bet to hit a home run tonight? First up, we have Tyler Naquin plus 260, Mike Moustakas plus 275, Eugenio Suarez plus 275, Nick Castellanos plus 275, and Jose Ramirez plus 300. Ben.
So normally I like to just pick the guy so I can say, well, he's in Coors, but the way Spag structured that doesn't really help me with these selections. But I'm going to go to Castellanos. Batting third, looking at his splits, I will say he's been much, much better at home, but obviously him, along with this entire Reds offense, of course, is going to put up some runs tonight, sitting perfect in the order. And he's just a guy that I kind of gravitate towards in this situation. So looking at these odds, he's not the favorite. They're all pretty much sandwiched. To me, you're looking at best available. These are really small margins from 260 to plus 300.
Yeah, I think it does jump out to me that Tyler Naquin being the leader amongst all these guys, where you do have proven home run hitters with Castellanos, with Moustakas, with Eugenio Suarez, all those guys being below Naquin does give me the lean that I think that Vegas is one of those spots where Vegas knows a little bit more than we do. I think Naquin is probably that top pick for a pretty good reason. So I think that's the best bet on the board. But I do think, to me, also going to one of the better hitters is not a crazy move. So Naquin, I feel confident, but just on a pure numbers basis, I would take Eugenio Suarez. I think you're getting the best combination of odds plus a guy who has a 278 ISO against right-hand pitching since 2019. So either way, though, it's a bad bullpen as well for Colorado. So even if Chichi Gonzalez doesn't give up big production to start, and I think I have some concerns from a DFS perspective that maybe Chichi does limit the damage early on, he's going to yield to a bad bullpen behind him. So I think either way, you really can't go wrong taking any of the Reds today for DFS or for the home run picks that we have.
Now for biggest arm, which of these top 4 odds getters on OddsShopper do you think is the best strikeouts over bet tonight? Is there a good under bet you like? We've got, actually we have 5 here. I said 4. Trevor Rogers over under 7.5 strikeouts. Zach Plesac over under 6.5. Jamison Tylon over under 6.5. Luis Castillo over under 5.5. And Mike F over under 4.5 strikeouts. Spags.
So Luis Castillo is a guy that I think people won't want to target here. And there are some worrying signs with him, obviously, besides the fact he's pitching at Coors, but he's facing a Colorado team that does have 6 guys that strike out above league average that I have pinned at a 28% aggregate K rate for their projected lineup today. Those are things that to me where, Castillo is a guy that I'm expecting to bounce back. I'm a little worried about a swinging strike rate being down to 10% compared to 15% since 2019. But I do think that's going to work itself out. His velocity is still there. Castillo has been a talented arm. And Coors, even though we talked about the hitting on the other side, it's not the hottest day in Coors yet either. Still only 73 degrees. And though that is still better than any other park out there or on the slate, it is a spot where the hitting isn't quite prime optimal conditions as it will be in, June, July, August in particular. So I think that to me, going to Castillo here, a little bit undervalued because it's Coors, and Castillo should regress positively over the coming weeks and months. And I think that can start today against a pretty weak Colorado lineup that gets struck out by everybody.
Go to Taillon. Just looking at the situation, it's the same thing I've been doing with these props, and I've been tracking it a little. And actually, you can steal some value like this. Tampa Bay just strikes out a ton so far to start the year. Now, obviously, these things can change, but right now they're dead last in the entire league, over 10 a game. So I just look at that. Yankees are a slight favorite on the road here, and I think with an over/under of 8, and it's slightly juiced to the under. Actually, he can go pretty deep in the game if he gets that opportunity. I think he'll K enough raise to push over that prop.
All right. And with that, we head into the Dr. Ben Rasa prop bet of the day. Where's that graphic? It's my favorite. All right, Dr. Ben, you are now 17-5 after Keldon Johnson hit an over on 11.5 points the last time the good doctor appeared on the tip-off. You are on quite a tear, my friend. How does it feel to have a run this good?
Feels good. I mean, every time we mention it, I lose. We were talking before the show when I got on that really good run, then I put on that lab coat, and then I distinctly went in the gutter. So kind of like a no-hitter. We probably shouldn't mention it, but we're going to try to bust that trend today and keep it going.
I just want the lab coat back. Tomorrow's Friday. We'll see how you do tonight, but I think it's time.
If Jason Day makes the cut in golf, I will wear the lab coat at some point soon. I need him desperately to make the cut. It's a terrible start for him. He determines the lab coat, chat.
All right, let's get into it. It is now time for the Dr. Ben Rasa prop bet of the day. Dr. Ben, this is when you grace us with your delicate genius for betting and give us all a chance to win with your prop bet of the day. You don't need the bells and whistles of some of our co-hosts, and we all know you'd never stoop to the level of something like, shaving an eyebrow in the name of content. Antics like that, save it for the chalk donkeys. Let us return to a simpler time, a time with no gimmicks needed. So Dr. Ben, Money Doctor, please give us your sweet prescription in the form of your prop bet of the day.
So I'm going to take my 10 seconds to complain before I give my prop. I was saying to Spags before the show, this is just brutal late in the year with props because the books hold off. There's so many moving parts. You take the Sixers and these other teams, you have key pieces that are questionable, and it makes the lines very, very difficult. So this was a tough one today. But I went to the team that I felt the most confident that I know what I'm getting. I don't know if it screams value, but I'm going to the Blazers, who I know they're in win mode. They're doing everything they can. They shortened their rotation last night to 8 players in that game against the Jazz. And obviously Lillard is leading the charge. His points total prop today is 27.5, and it's even money. It's plus 100. I'm going over. This is a situation. I know they're on a back-to-back, a brutal back-to-back at Utah, at Phoenix. I think he could push for 40 minutes tonight. He's obviously going to take shots. He's obviously going to take a bunch of threes, and they're in must-win mode. They are fighting desperately to try to get out of the playoff, the play-in tournament and whatnot. They had a huge win last night. I see no reason why Lillard, if they lose, he could get there on pure volume. He could shoot upwards of 25 times here. If they win somehow, and they're a slight dog, it's very, very possible. He certainly is likely to be efficient here. And, if he gets hot from 3, he's going to push over. So I'll call for Lillard at even money to go over 27.5 points tonight, even though it's a very, very difficult prop slate.
I think that's a tough bet to take for me, but I do think what Ben is talking about, what you're talking about the motivation, I think is an important part here. And Lillard, the 8-man rotation, I think is a good point where they certainly have the bodies to play more, and they are choosing to go all in here because they are trying to make sure they get the best seating that they're viewing it, and definitely trying to avoid the play-in game, though. I feel like they're pretty safe on that part now. But either way, for me, I think Lillard taking the motivation here, playing the motivation across the board is the right move. So I hope Dr. Ben is right, and I hope that Jason Day and the lab coat can sing together and dance under the rainbows of harmony and winning prop bets.
Yes, indeed. We've got a little showdown going on in the chat. Poke the bear, Spags. You poke the bear.
The shaved eyebrow bear. Bear just missed the eyeballs.
All right, it's time to head back to the NBA for No House Advantage. Here are some of No House Advantage's props of the day for key players. Do you like the over or under on them, and how many points would you guys assign? First up, we've got Giannis, over under 27.5 points. Spags.
So this is one that I think, the assumption might be that the over is a decent bet. He just had a good game against Orlando, played more minutes. But I think the fact that the Bucks are adding guys to their roster right now leads me to have some concern that they just pull something weird here. And I think maybe not even Giannis resting. So that's something that obviously is an important part, where if Giannis gets ruled out, the bet's off the table on No House Advantage, so you can't play it. But I do think taking the under here as a lower probability bet is, a 3 or 4 pointer on No House Advantage is a move that I don't mind right now, because I think there are some pathways here for Giannis to only play the first half. There's some logic to me in just him not playing at all, but I think the Bucks have shown they don't want to go that way. So I think it wouldn't surprise me to see him just get decreased run here. And I think that prop line is set for a Giannis that's fully productive and going full bore. So I would be okay taking the under here, but again, not the high priority one as some of the usual ones that we talk about in the segment.
I'm going to go probably to the chalkier option and say over. I get what you're saying. I do think there are scenarios where they call up the dogs with Giannis, and maybe he's eased off if they can get sizably ahead here. But I'm just looking at the line. It's up to 29.5. So you are stealing a couple points there. Definitely not one that, like you said, is towards the top of the card. But for that reason, in the sense that I get 27.5 and it's 29.5 now, I think that I'll go over here.
Next, we've got Gary Trent, over under 19.5 points. Ben.
This one I'm also going to go over. This is up to 20.5, and Awesemo's identified it as one of the better props. It's one, that's my favorite thing about these projections and our ROI and X-Win tool over on OddsShopper is I would never have looked at Gary Trent Jr.'s prop at all today. It's just something I would have gone, but he's identified it and we've identified it, and now I can dig in, and it looks like it's one that's moving in our favor. So at 19.5, in a game here, we've talked about this Raptors Bulls game is a mess, a lot of moving parts, but that's one I do believe is certainly safer than the Giannis one.
Yeah, I would take the over on this one too. To me, it's a little bit higher confidence in the Giannis bet, where I would put this one at a 5 or 6 pointer for me. And it's one that it's still not a median projection reflection on Gary Trent, where I think, the rates, you can move him around in such a way with the court time that we've had, where Malachi Flynn's going to look a little better and Gary Trent might look a little better. But I think I'm going to get less Gary Trent than the guys like Malachi Flynn, like Yuta Watanabe today, as I talked about earlier. So I think this is one spot where you can hedge on No House Advantage and take the over on Trent's points, where if you're just getting 20% of him, the field's going to be a little bit higher. I think playing him on No House Advantage might be the move. And Trent's been jacking up shots. The last couple of games, he's been above 16 shot attempts. And also last game was just running so badly against the Clippers that he just sort of lost confidence in the second half. And I think missed 4 straight shots in the second half, then basically did nothing for the rest of the time. I think if he gets going here, very possible to do against Chicago. You could see Gary Trent actually have a really big upside. So I think the over on his points and No House Advantage sort of is the best of both worlds.
And last but not least, we've got Delon Wright, over under 27.5 points plus rebounds plus assist. Bags.
So this is one that I like more as an over than his points prop or even his assist props, where I think those lines have for the most part adjusted. But I think what they haven't adjusted for is sort of the cumulative effort of what Delon Wright can do, especially if he's going to be playing, mid 30s to high 30s minutes. I think it's a situation for him where just the court time can lead to him just stumbling into more stats. And he does that pretty well. Rebounds, assists, also, for fantasy steals and blocks are there for him too. But I do think just, having the accumulation of everything, just knowing that he's going to get a bunch of court time. I don't think he's a great scorer. I don't think he's a great assist guy. I don't think he's a great rebounder, but he does enough of everything here where just getting all that together to me makes it about a 6 or 7 pointer today on No House Advantage.
Yeah, and I think it's a situation when you just look at this team, they're missing so much of everything. It's not like they're just looking for offense. They need people to distribute. They need people to rebound. And he can kind of do that. So I think by process of elimination in terms of the Kings and what they're dealing with, I see where you're going there. It's the kind of situation you end up, feels like he doesn't have a big game. And then you look, he did enough in each category to push over this total. So I'm with you. I'm going to make it three overs for me on No House Advantage today. I'm going over on all of them.
All right. Friends, don't forget to play on No House Advantage, our sponsor, who is taking a different spin on daily fantasy sports. Just download the No House Advantage app today and use promo code Awesemo to receive a deposit bonus of up to $20 for new signups. Beat your friends, not the house. Win big with player props today. We now head into Good Dog, Bad Dog. Right on cue, Jordan. But before we do, people want me to do Eric's impression in the chat, but I think that's Spags' thing. I don't want to ruin Spags' bit.
Look, I'm willing to let you try, Kayla. I feel like just for the sake of the bit here, the people got to give the people what they want. And, I'm not doing the impression today, Kayla. So give it a shot. See how it feels.
I feel like this is something I need to practice first off camera. What if I practice tonight and then do it on tomorrow's show? So you'll have to tune in tomorrow.
A little tease.
Okay, I see what you did there.
Host Kayla. Yeah, let's do that. Tease it out tomorrow. And we'll debut Kayla's brand spanking new Eric Lindquist impression.
There we go. Tune in tomorrow to check it out. All right. In real life, there is no such thing as a bad dog. In betting and DFS, there are a lot of underdogs who may have no chance in their game. So who's a good dog to target tonight and who's a bad one? Ben, give us your good dog.
This is a terrible. This could be a major trap. I'm going to say the Timberwolves. I don't get this line. They're only 2.5-point dogs at home. And I think it's a situation Denver could be caught sleepwalking. They're down extra guys. Obviously, Porter makes a big difference. I think the Timberwolves win a game here that Denver just really doesn't care about.
I think that's actually a pretty good dog too. And, here's the thing. I'm a little reluctant to throw another one out there after I so nailed Houston covering yesterday, right in the face of a certain co-host of mine who shall remain nameless. No reason to drag people in here when they aren't on the show. But I would say that, to me, I want to keep that heater going. And I think it continues with a bet that Ben was talking about. I think taking Portland to actually win outright would be my good dog. They are a 5-point dog on the road. Phoenix, I think, kind of skidding the wrong direction recently in a way that I don't love. I think they're going to figure it out for the playoffs, but there have been some signs for me where I think Portland's running a little better. They are beating some teams that they had to beat on the way here. I think one more win over Phoenix, who is trying to win for the most part. I think still a spot here where Portland can take this one outright. So they're my good dog.
Spags, you never drag anyone that's not on the show.
How could I? I know. Just us on the show, us three, our own little universe, and Jordan too. Obviously, Jordan can be dragged in.
Obviously, yes. Okay. Spags, give us your bad dog.
My bad dog for the day is, I think, going to be Sacramento. I do think that guys like Delon Wright, Chimi Metsu, they're all going to have decent prospects today. But I just think Memphis has been taking care of some of these teams that are playing short shrift against them recently. They still have more than enough bodies to get there. They could also be getting Jonas Valanciunas back tonight, though I don't think that really affects things too much either way. But I think Sacramento, I just feel like they are sort of ramping down for pretty good reason. I think they don't really have any reason to try to win this game. So why would you pick them?
Same process for me with the Magic. The Hawks need this game. They're trying to avoid one of these teams we're talking before the show is going to end up getting the Bucks, most likely, them, the Knicks. There's a couple teams in the East battling. The Magic are lifeless right now. The Hawks are at home. They're 12.5-point favorite, which is sizable. But this one, I have a feeling Trae Young and the starters will be watching from the bench after they open it up. So I'd lay the points with the Hawks tonight.
All right, we've got one more minute. Ben, give us your make or break, followed by your fade of the day.
So the Blazers and Lillard is the guy that I'm zeroed in on. I like that prop tonight, and I think Spags, he's also on the Blazers as well. I think they can, and they're another dog that I do like. So that's a key game for me. And then on the other side, surviving, Jokic is going to determine how the Timberwolves do, and obviously the MVP can always determine a DFS slate. So the Nuggets are another team that I like to back them, but tonight I'm shorting them.
Yeah, I think for me, Toronto has to be my make or break just because I'm going to be heavily invested in all their guys today. And as I mentioned earlier in the show, if you're trying to take two and tail me along with it or fade it, I guess appropriately, Malachi Flynn, Yuta Watanabe, the guys that I want to get the most of today. Watanabe, I think, will end up in a wide portion of my lineups, assuming that he does start. And even if he doesn't still, and I feel like the fade of the day for me, Julius Randle's a guy that I think you just get better plays on the slate, where if Jokic is playing more than enough minutes, I think he's in a fantastic spot against Minnesota. If you get Sabonis playing without LeVert or even with LeVert, he's in a good spot. I feel like Julius Randle's a good player. I hope he does well in the playoffs. I think the Knicks are still fighting for something, as Ben mentioned, but I think overall for DFS, he's just the guy that you should have less of today on DraftKings.
All right. And with that, that's going to do it for us today on the tip-off. Thanks to Spags and Dr. Rasa. Thank you all for tuning in. The NBA Deeper Dive and Live Before Lock are coming your way next. As always, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. I'm Kayla Knierim. We'll see you guys here tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern on the tip-off, and maybe I'll do an Eric impression. You'll just have to wait and see. Have a good one.
Maybe.
Gotta do it now.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Awesemo.com NBA Deeper Dive presented by Jock Market. I'm Dave Loughran on Twitter at Loughy_D, LOUGHY_D. That's where you can follow me. Hit me up along with my guy, Adam Scherer at ShipMyMoney DFS. Rocking the collared shirt today. It's a big occasion in NBA DFS world. We've got yet another 9-game slate with myriad injuries scattered across the landscape, Adam, and it is clear the end of the season is very, very close.
Yeah, the end of the season is close, and if you look at the games that we happen to have today, there's like 1.5 that actually matter for both teams. It's, basically, I think the Phoenix-Portland game matters for both, and then sort of the Milwaukee-Indiana game, but not really. Other than that, you just got like a lot of teams that aren't really playing for anything, and it's reflected in the injury report, I think.
How much of that is going to show us that even more players get ruled out as we draw closer to lock?
It's definitely a concern for me. I mean, like, for example, you look at the Hawks who played yesterday, played their guys a bunch of minutes against Washington. And then now they're randomly they have 4 questionable guys. They still have something to play for, but they clinched their playoff spot. It's just a matter of, if they end up being the 4 or the 5, basically. It wouldn't be surprising if you see a team like that kind of just, give their guys a night off. You're seeing Denver already, ruling out Michael Porter Jr. for rest. We're getting to that point in the season where a lot of these teams I don't think are going to care very much.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Chat coming in hot right out of the gate. Smart bet, Mr. D Go Blue. Jordan says Adam's got a Tinder date after the show. Do you use Tinder for someone that's single? I've always looked back. Hopefully nobody's important's watching this, but I always look back and thought, man, I wish I was still in the dating game when all of that shit existed. It feels like it's fun and I really missed out.
Yeah, I don't use it that much. I use Bumble more. I don't really use that all that much.
Oh, you're a Bumble guy.
I live in the middle of 100 bars in walking distance. I typically just kind of go out. But
if you lived in a more rural area, would you have used farmersonly.com?
Of course. I know what that is.
You've never heard of it? You don't remember that?
I've heard of it.
You don't remember the commercial?
I remember the Christian Mingle commercial.
Look up the Farmers Only commercial. It is really something else. Someone out there knows exactly what I'm talking about. One of you guys, couple of you got to know what I'm talking about. Yeah, Farmers Only was a legitimate dating site only for farmers. So I wouldn't fit in. We should have just gone on there and pretended to be farmers. But either way, Adam, we have 9 games to talk about, a lot to get into. And Joel Embiid questionable for this one. De'Aaron Fox out. Trae Young probable. Just a couple of the big names that we've got coming up on here. We'll get into all of that. But before we do, what's going on, everybody? Hit that thumbs up. Make it the first thing you do when you jump in here. We only have a few shows left in the regular season. That's it. A few shows to go. Friday, Saturday, and then Sunday is going to be intense. 15-gamer. I don't know what they plan on doing there. I won't be here tomorrow, so this is my last show of the regular season. So if nothing else, hammer that thumbs up and subscribe just for that, because hopefully you've enjoyed the season as much as we have, and, well, we wouldn't have been able to do it without you. So, Adam, first question. As always, we dive into this. Stars and scrubs today. How intense of a stars and scrubs situation is this going to be? Are we talking about no mid-range guys and just straight 3 high-end guys above 9K and then filtering in with all 3 and 4K guys surrounding them?
I think it's pretty similar to what we've been seeing. I mean, you have another slate where Toronto is basically, they're running out 8 guys today. You have, potentially Atlanta resting guys. You have value from Denver. You have Orlando playing. You have Indiana playing. There's no shortage of value. I mean, in some of those situations, prices have come up a little bit, so they're not 3K flat, but no shortage of value and enough guys to pay up for. I think the one thing that makes this slate maybe a little bit different is you don't have quite as strong of pay-up options. Like, you have Jokic, you have Giannis, you have Sabonis. We don't even know if Embiid's going to play. So it's not, I guess, the stars are maybe lacking a little bit compared to some other slates, but yeah, it's still just going to be one where it's really easy to get to whoever you want.
Thanks, Mikey B, for the super chat. Says, should really try cow licks only. Here we go with this cow lick shit. I just don't understand what's going on. But we'll gladly accept that super chat. Appreciate that. We got the Clippers. We got the Hornets as we jump into this, and be sure after the show to stick around because, well, more news is probably going to break. Greg Ehrenberg, Eric Lindquist taking you all the way up to lock. And then 30-minute extended show going into Jock Market, a straight 30 minutes up till 7:30 there. Stick around, hang out with them for that. And then the MMA show coming up at 8 p.m. Eastern with Jason Floyd and Pete Rogers. So you've got the Clippers here on the road on the East Coast, traveling west to east against the Hornets, 220.5 total. They're 8-point favorites. Outside of Ibaka, everybody looks pretty healthy. You know, you and I had a pretty decently long conversation about Kawhi Leonard the other day. Like, how much right now at this price point where you say, okay, he's pretty discounted, pretty cheap, but like, where is the ceiling on Kawhi Leonard right now, even at this price? And is he kind of just packing it in over the final few days of the regular season? It kind of feels like it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say that necessarily, because I do think he does still have a ceiling. I mean, it's still Kawhi. You've seen some blowouts mixed in, but, you know, the game that the most recent game that didn't blow out, he played 36 minutes. But at the same time, the Clippers are pretty much the 3 seed. Like, they're 2 games behind Phoenix. They're a game up on Denver. It's pretty likely they're going to end up there. So it's definitely a team where it wouldn't be too surprising if you saw them not rest guys necessarily, but just, you know, not run Kawhi for like 37 minutes tonight. So, you know, I do think there's some risk, but still, I mean, that salary, I think for someone that averages about 1.3 fantasy points per minute, like Kawhi does, I still think that the salary is a little bit cheaper than it should be.
What about the rest of the Clippers, a team that outside of injuries, we really haven't targeted much at all this season? Like, we've targeted the Clippers a lot, right? But usually it's because one of Kawhi or Paul George is out, or Ibaka and Beverly were out. Or, you know, Marcus Morris was out. They've dealt with a lot of blows throughout the season. Now you've got everyone healthy, which on a slate like this, really, no, I should say on any slate late in the season, these fully healthy teams, unless there are maybe inaccurately priced guys, I assume you're saying Kawhi Leonard might be a little bit underpriced here. When these guys are priced correctly, unless it's like Westbrook or Trae Young, right, or Embiid or Jokic, where you're willing to pay these correct price points because they have 80 fantasy point or 60, 70 fantasy point upside, they've been a relatively tough team to get to since they got back to near full strength.
Yeah, and really, I mean, that's been the case all season, is like when Kawhi and George both play, it's been really tough to get to much from this team. I do think that the decreasing price tags on those two makes it a little bit easier. You know, again, 8,400 for Kawhi really stands out, but even George at 8,700, he's produced at a similar rate to Kawhi this year when they both played. But the problem you're going to run into is just the way the slate breaks down. Also, it's not going to be difficult to get from one of those guys to, you know, a Jokic or a Giannis or a Sabonis. So I think that, you know, it still just kind of keeps them as secondary options. And behind those guys, I don't really see much here. Not to say that someone like Zubac can't have a good game. It's just that there's going to be so many guys that you can project for more minutes than Zubac and really all these guys other than Leonard and George, that it's going to be tough to get to anything else, I think.
All right. Now, on the other side of this one with Charlotte, very similar circumstances where it's different in that you have guys out. Hayward's been out. Bridges remains out. Cody Martin is out. Caleb Martin's questionable, so we can pay a little bit of attention to that, see where his status comes in dealing with that dislocated left thumb. That sucks. Played only 7 minutes last game. But everyone else now, they're at price points that are a little bit prohibitive in some sense. It's not like they're getting a particularly good matchup here against the LA Clippers. They're 8-point dogs. And as you mentioned, there's a lot of teams that aren't playing for much, but then there's a lot of teams that aren't playing for anything, which means that they're just going to sit guys and open a ton up. Charlotte doesn't really have anything going for them from a DFS incentive standpoint tonight.
Well, I mean, they're tied for the 8 seed with Indiana, so they need to win, or they would like to win.
I meant in the sense that like the pricing doesn't necessarily match up with anything else they have going.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. This is one of the teams that actually has an incentive to play their guys big minutes tonight, but they're also priced to play big minutes. You know, the injuries, like this is a team where you've seen it, you know, the salaries have come up as guys were injured, and then you got PJ Washington back, you got Devontae Graham back, you got LaMelo Ball back. Ball played about 31.5 minutes last game. He's expensive. I mean, he has a ceiling, obviously, but isn't going to look that great at that salary. PJ Washington played 40 minutes, which obviously you really like to see. There's some upside there, but again, he's, you know, from a medium projection standpoint, I think more or less where he should be. Same can be said for Rozier, who played 40 minutes last game. All three of those guys, I think, give you a ceiling, but it's still going to be really difficult to trust them because their salaries have increased so much.
Yeah, I think so too. So looking at the rest of Charlotte, I mean, is there anybody that you'd be even remotely okay with getting into lineups today? Like LaMelo on FanDuel is still 7,500. I don't really think that's all that bad, but he's still going up against a lot of other really good players at the point guard position, which makes things tough, even when you're rostering 2 point guards.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that salary is bad on FanDuel, but, like you said, it's still not the best spot. There's still plenty of other underpriced guys to get to as well. Terry Rozier, 7,600 on FanDuel, kind of the same thing. Like, he's a fantasy point per minute guy playing 38 to 40 minutes. So there's some appeal there. One other price, I guess, to point out on DraftKings, Devontae Graham's actually $1,100 less expensive on DraftKings than he is on FanDuel. He played 33 minutes last game off the bench. No guarantee that happens again, but it is nice to see that that's, at least possible for him. I think normally you're going to get closer to 30 or 31, but certainly in that conversation again of guys that don't project all that well, but at least do have a path to success, given that, the Hornets probably will play their main guys big minutes tonight.
If Caleb Martin sits, does that open anything up for anybody here? I know his minutes have, come down a little bit lately, but like, does Malik Monk benefit at all as someone that could potentially get 28, 29 minutes from that?
I don't really think so. I mean, Caleb Martin only played 6.5 minutes last game. You got 17.5 from Monk. Even if you give all of those minutes to Monk, you're still only talking about like 23 to 24 minutes. So I think Monk would probably be the most likely beneficiary. You could also potentially see, the centers play more minutes. You got actually last game, you got almost 48 minutes from Biyombo and Zeller. Zeller played 29.5. Biyombo played 16. Not confident that you're getting that same split tonight, but if Martin's out, I think it does make it more likely that you're getting close to 48 from Biyombo and Zeller.
Did Caleb Martin not, or did he play 7 minutes because he dislocated his thumb, or did he only play 7 minutes? So,
I'm guessing that one because he played 6.5 minutes in the first half and then didn't play at all in the second.
Right. That's what I was thinking too. And not only that though, he played 6.5 minutes in the first quarter. So you would think he would have gotten more run there.
Yeah, and you saw Monk didn't play at all in the first quarter. He played 9, almost 10 minutes in the second quarter. So, I think that you probably get an extra 6 minutes or so from Monk. But the only path I think for Monk getting more than those like 23 or 24 minutes is if Charlotte were to take minutes away from Zeller or Biyombo, give more minutes to Washington at the 5, then you can get Monk playing more minutes in small ball lineups. But that doesn't seem to be the route that they're going.
Okay, man, chat going off today. You love to see it. Everybody in a good mood makes me feel good. Some of these things I just can't read out loud, but things are getting entertaining. And when we get some good stuff, I'll be sure to throw it out there. Milwaukee and Indiana. Let's talk about this one. Giannis Antetokounmpo and the Bucks here are 9-point favorites on the road. Again, Indiana has a lot of key players, at least one specifically very key player sidelined, and Karis LeVert may be out for this one. Giannis did play 32 minutes against the Orlando Magic last game, so it appears there is still some incentive to get him decent run if the game stays competitive enough. 56 fantasy points, you'll take that. And as far as the standings go in the Eastern Conference, the Bucks are the only ones that clinched their division so far. They're 1.5 games behind the Nets. They have, I think, 3 games to go. I believe the Nets have 2 games to go. So it is still possible, Adam, that they can leapfrog them into the 2 spot. I just don't know how important it is to them.
Yeah, exactly. I think when you talk about the main pay-up options tonight with Giannis, Jokic, and Sabonis, I think Milwaukee and Denver are similar in that they're kind of set where they are. Like, they could move up, but it may not be as important to them as sort of resting guys a little bit. Indiana's the one where, they're tied with Charlotte for that 8 seed. You assume they would prefer to be the 8 seed over the 9 seed, in the play-in tournament. So when you talk about Sabonis, Jokic, and Giannis, I think that while, Sabonis already averages the most minutes, but then when you also think about the incentives of the teams, I think Sabonis out of those 3 is by far the safest in terms of playing time.
All right. So, all right, let's stick with the Bucks for a minute here and just talk about the top of this team. They're not cheap at all. And that is one of the reasons that since Giannis has been back and active for the past, I don't know, however many weeks it's been now, you just haven't been getting a lot of Middleton. You haven't been getting a lot of Drew Holiday for pretty obvious reasons. They're both priced above 8K. On FanDuel, they're a little bit cheaper. Ownership is coming in a little bit heavier. Giannis is getting 31% projected ownership right now. And on DraftKings, he's getting around 22%. How much of that is because the matchup is really good against Indiana? They play at a lightning fast pace, but also it's going to be super easy to get to any high-priced player you want today. I think all of that factors into the equation, right?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of both. It's a really good matchup, and Milwaukee's a fast-paced team too. I mean, this game, Milwaukee has like 126 point implied total. The Pacers are around 117 or 118. So both of these teams play fast. Indiana doesn't play well defensively. So even if you're concerned that you're only going to get 32 or 33 minutes from Giannis, you have to keep in mind that he's probably going to get more possessions per minute than he does in an average game because of this matchup. So that all looks, really good. And then, like you were saying too, there's enough value that it's just not going to be difficult to get him into lineup. So I do think the fact that he played almost 33 minutes last game is somewhat reassuring. He also lost a couple minutes in the first half to foul trouble. Not that you can necessarily just tack those minutes on, because maybe he played a couple more minutes in the second half. Maybe he didn't. We don't really know. But there is at least some reason to think that maybe he can play like 35 minutes or something. But even if you assume he plays 32 or 33, if this game's close, he's going to project as one of the top scorers on the slate, and raw points are really going to matter a lot because of all the value. So even though, there are concerns about Giannis, I think it's also, it's going to be factored into ownership. It's factored into the projection. I mean, if this were a game that Milwaukee had to win, for example, you'd be assuming Giannis plays another 4 or 5 minutes. So, I think it's all baked in enough to where Giannis still looks good, even with those concerns.
Dave Loughran says, Adam, I'm getting married in 2 weeks. Met my wife on Bumble. There's hope.
Oh, good. Glad to hear it. Congrats.
Let me ask you something. How old are you now? 28, 29, 30?
31.
30. I sometimes forget what age I am. And I know you're 3 years younger than me. And I just,
Yeah.
flies in the face.
I do that too. I'm like, oh, this person's like 24. And then I realize they're like 28.
Exactly. It's a problem. 5 years down the road, you see yourself married?
Maybe.
You want to have kids?
More likely to be married than have kids, probably.
Okay. But what if she's like, listen, you really love those girls. She's like, I want to have kids.
I'm not opposed to kids. I just don't.
And she's like, if you don't, I will resent you for the rest of our lives and make your life a living hell.
I think I would just have kids. Like I'm pretty indifferent on kids.
Okay. You know what? I feel like most men are that way until it happens. I never really cared. I was take it or leave it. You know what I mean? And then
I mean, like my best friends all have kids now, and I see theirs, and I'm like, oh, I can see how that would be cool. And then I hang out with them for like 2 hours, and I'm just like, thank God they're not mine. And so I'm kind of just, like, if it happens, it happens. I really don't care one way or the other.
It is awesome. I got a 2.5-month-old, but I'll tell you this much. I think a lot of guys out there, you don't have to admit this. You could play the hero role. I think a lot of them out there hype themselves up and convince themselves that it's awesome. Like, in many ways it is, but they got to tell people. They'll be like, God, my life's a living hell. I can't sleep. The kids I'm chasing around every day. I'm at soccer practice 18 times a week. Billy's at baseball every Saturday, and I have to go do that. And they're like, but it's the greatest. I just love it.
Yeah. Like,
what is it?
Yeah. I don't know. Like that part of like, I can see how it would be cool having a kid, but I also look at it like, what's really nice is being able to go do whatever I want, whenever I want, spend whatever money I want on all that stuff and not think twice about it.
For sure. Yeah. Someone said Laffy turning this into Oprah. And I just had a question. I was just curious. You got the nice shirt on, getting ready to make things happen. I just wanted to know. I mean, can you blame me? With the Indiana Pacers, though, as we get back on track here, if only for a brief moment, Caris LeVert's questionable. Now, I'm assuming, do you have him in right now with that bruised right knee?
Yeah, I mean, I have him in right now. I don't have a strong lean one way or the other.
Okay. They clinched a spot in the play-in rounds. I mean, really the best they could do here. I suppose they could get to 7. I don't know if that's really going to happen, right? They're 1.5 games behind the Celtics. They got 3 games to go. Celtics have 2. So it's possible. I'm assuming that the Pacers are going to run their starters for as many minutes as they can here if it's close. And Caris LeVert, if he can play, will play. That's what I was getting at.
Yeah, that's my assumption too, because I mean, there's still a benefit to getting the 8 over the 9. So I would think that they would like to pass Charlotte.
Okay. What are we doing with Sabonis? It's the same question I always ask you, but he's just been so damn good every night. He's playing. Look at the minutes: 40, 39, 43, 41, 37, 43. That's insane playing time. I think you called him the poor man's Westbrook, or like the front court Russell Westbrook the other day. So to a large extent, he's doing very similar things with very similar minutes on a team that doesn't have many other options.
Yeah, I think, it would sound crazy if you just, 2 weeks ago said that you were going to have a slate where Jokic, Giannis, and Sabonis were basically the same price. And you could make a strong argument that Sabonis was the best play of the three, but I think you really can because, I think that, it's likely that you get 32 to 33 minutes from Giannis. It's likely, I think, that you get 32 or 33 minutes from Jokic. I wouldn't be shocked if he plays a couple minutes fewer than normal tonight. And then Sabonis could play 40. Like he could, even if all three of these games are relatively competitive, you could realistically see 6 to 8 more minutes from Domantas Sabonis than you see from those other two. And Sabonis has averaged 1.65 DraftKings points per minute in the 8 games he's played without Brogdon and without Miles Turner this year. If LeVert's out, there's even more usage to go around, but he has a 38% assist percentage in those games without Brogdon. So he's producing at basically just as high a level as Giannis does and Jokic does. And there's just a real chance that he plays a lot more minutes.
Man, it's tough to get away from something like this with how well he's played. Where would you prioritize him among the top tier options today? That might be an easier question.
Yeah, I think all three project very similarly. If ownership were the same on all three, I honestly think I would lean slightly towards Sabonis just because of the playing time. But I think overall it's a situation where if any one of them, and this is strictly tournament speaking, but if any one of them is getting significantly less ownership than the other ones, just hammer that one.
LeVert's been playing huge minutes as well lately, and 40 plus in 3 of his last 4. If he's active, is there any way, obviously if he's acted and not limited, is there any way that you're willing to get to Caris LeVert today at particularly low ownership, or is it a spot that you think we can do better elsewhere?
No, I mean, I think he's a good play. I don't think he's as good a play as Sabonis is, but, he's averaged 1.33 DraftKings points per minute in those games without Turner and Brogdon. He's got a 30.3% usage rate, 26.5% assist percentage, and he's playing huge minutes too, like you said. So, I think he'll be a little bit more difficult to get to than Sabonis, but he's still going to look really good and give you a really high ceiling for his salary.
What else are we looking at for the Pacers, if anything? And I will throw this out there. Aaron Holiday is questionable for this one. His minutes have kind of been all over the map. He's had a couple decent games mixed in along the way. Edmund Sumner's out. Jeremy Lamb is out. If you take Holiday out, it's just another backcourt player that would not be active. Would that incentivize guys or us to get to guys like TJ McConnell, who is a pretty decent per minute guy, north of 1 per minute this season?
Yeah, so if Aaron Holiday sits, I don't think it really matters. He didn't play last game. But if LeVert sits and Holiday sits, I think that you're seeing, well, really just if LeVert sits, but if Holiday sits, it would shore it up. You're probably going to see a lot of minutes for TJ McConnell. So he would start to look really good. You would get, I think, a lot of minutes for Justin Holiday, who, I won't say he would look really good, but he would look reasonable given the number of minutes he's likely to play. You'd potentially get more minutes for Keelan Martin as well. I mean, this team has the potential to be very shorthanded if you take LeVert out and you take Aaron Holiday out.
All right, let's wrap up the Pacers then. Given the news, given what we have to work with right now, assuming LeVert is in, anything else you want to talk about?
No, assuming LeVert's in, I think Sabonis is the priority. LeVert looks good. If LeVert is out, I think it bumps up McConnell. You could, maybe throw some darts at Doug McDermott or Justin Holiday.
All right. Orlando and the Atlanta Magic. I did see a comment or a question, as a matter of fact, asking when the Gold Rush promo ends. Well, I can tell you right now, once I get to it, because I suck at my job, it is valid through May 20th. What is the Gold Rush promo, you may ask? I'm here to tell you. It is 25% off the entire month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. The full month, using the promo code Gold Rush, it gets you the NBA playoffs, going into the NBA playoffs, gets you NHL going into the playoffs, it gets you MLB, all of that. Gold Rush, one word. Use that promo if you want to get access to all of that. That's ownership, player projections, top stack tool, boom bust tool, the lineup builder, all of our premium articles, you name it, all of that stuff. It's good through the 20th of May. And I'm making sure it's a month here and not a week. Jordan, is it a month? I don't see anywhere where it actually says, just say, let's see. Yeah, there we go. A month. It's a full month for 25% off. So it's a pretty killer deal. We haven't done a Awesemo Plus monthly for all sports in a while. Gold Rush, all one word. If you've been wondering what we have, you want to check it out. this is the best time to do that. All of the tools built by the #1 ranked DFS player, Alex Baker, Awesemo himself, used by #1 ranked DFS player as well. You don't just stick his name on there. You also get access to the premium Slack chat, get to join the community, and take advantage of the office hours in Slack if you do jump in there, where you got the pros from Awesemo taking your questions and helping you better your game as a DFS player in a more, should I say, intimate scenario or situation. Makes things a whole lot better. And if you're not ready to do that, right? Pockets are a little bit tight right now. We've got free content over at awesemo.com. Premium content that today is free. The NBA ownership rankings, MLB player rankings, and the NHL player and stack rankings. All three of those usually behind paywall today. They're free. You don't even have to sign up to do that. But otherwise, go to awesemo.com/promo. Use promos, use that gold rush, and get the full month for 25% off. All right, Orlando and Atlanta. You got a bunch of Q tags on Atlanta. We'll clear the board with Orlando first, though. 13-point dogs, 221.5 total. Everyone is out basically for the year that's been out for Orlando. And now you've just got the questionable tag on Mo Bamba. I'll start with this. If he doesn't play, right, if Mo Bamba ends up sitting, what type of impact does that have on guys like Carter Jr., on guys like Mo Wagner, and how much more appealing, if at all, do they become for you today?
So it would be the same situation as we had last game. You still only got 30.9 minutes from Wendell Carter Jr., and he led the team in playing time. So I think we're kind of at a point with Orlando where they're just playing out the string, and you can't really count on anyone playing huge minutes. You got 30 and a half minutes from Karl-Anthony in that game. No one else touched 30 minutes. Gary Harris was next to 28.8. So I think on a slate where there's a lot of shorthanded teams, there's a lot of guys to pay up for, it's going to be tough to get too excited about Orlando here. Prices have come up on some guys as well. I mean, Karl-Anthony's up to 6,900. RJ Hampton's up to 5,900. Wagner's at 5,700. There's really nothing that looks good here, even if Mo Bamba sits, I think.
Okay, simple enough. Let's talk about Atlanta then. Trae Young, questionable coming into this game, probable coming into this game with that right hip soreness, coming off of 2 back-to-back games against the Wizards where he went 30 plus, 9 assists in both. That's what happens when you face the Washington Wizards. Meanwhile, overshadowed by Russell Westbrook in both of them, but that's also to be expected. The big news here, and we're still waiting on any news, Clint Capella has right heel pain. He's questionable. Bogdan Bogdanović is questionable with left hamstring soreness, and Danilo Gallinari is also questionable with lower back soreness. I mean, these just sound like made-up injuries, but here we are.
It reminds me of when like a team in baseball clinches the division and then just sits everyone the next day.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm definitely kind of skeptical about the seriousness of these injuries, but we'll have to keep an eye on it. Fortunately, the one good thing about this slate as a whole, every single game starts at 8 or earlier, with the exception of the Portland Phoenix game, and we don't really have to worry about news in that one. So we should at least get some news early. This game being at 7:30 is one of the earlier ones too. So if all those guys are in, I think Trae Young looks good. It's obviously a good matchup against Orlando. You can take shots at Bogdanović, Collins, Capella, but where it really starts to get interesting beyond Trae Young is if some of these guys do sit, because if Clint Capella sits, you're probably getting a Kongwu in the starting lineup at 3K. He would be clearly a very good value. You would get John Collins most likely playing more minutes at center, which is very good news for him. He produces at a higher rate when he's playing at the 5. So, he would look better. You're getting, possibly more minutes for Herter, possibly more minutes for Lou Williams at 3,500 if Bogdanović and Gallinari would be ruled out. So the nice thing about Atlanta is they have guys that produce fantasy points at a high rate that are kind of like waiting in the wings. And if they're fully healthy, it's a team where you have trouble prioritizing anyone outside of Trae Young. But as guys start getting ruled out, you're not forced to look to, like 0.7 fantasy point per minute guys playing 30 minutes. You're actually getting guys that can score the ball and can put up big fantasy numbers. So Atlanta is a pretty fun team when guys start getting ruled out.
They are. Yeah. They're also playing their second of a back-to-back today, and they're 2 touchdown favorites. So if this game happens to get a little bit out of control, which is very, very possible, I do have some concerns that potentially Trae Young is, not going to be getting his full allotment of minutes, but it's a risk you have to take here. He's getting a little bit of ownership on Draftkings in that 15% range. On Fanduel, Trae Young's around 25% because he's at $8,600. If this entire team is healthy today, outside of, the guys who have been out, really it's just Cam Reddish and Tony Snell at this point. Is it just Trae Young for you, or like, do we need injuries for them to be more appealing?
It's Trae Young primarily. I will mention Capella because Orlando's been terrible at rebounding since they traded Vooch. The concern with Capella would be he only played 28 minutes yesterday on the front half of the back-to-back. That was in a very competitive game against Washington. Now he's dealing with some sort of soreness, I guess. And so if he plays, you don't really feel too confident that he's getting 33 or 34 minutes. But I do think that for whatever minutes he's on the floor, he probably produces at a really high rate because this team just cannot rebound.
You know, I haven't played a free roll in a while, but I think I'm going to play the FanDuel free roll tonight.
The Top Shot one?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
You can do it?
I haven't even looked at it.
1 through 5 is legendary hollow packs.
Huh.
Pretty cool. I mean, there's going to be like 90,000 people, but
yeah, I mean, so I'm just as likely to win that as I am to win a pack lottery. So
yeah, exactly. But this is free.
Right.
So yeah, can't hurt. I'll jump into it. I mean, look, if I were to pull a legendary pack right now, I know everybody's down on Top Shot, but it's always when everyone forgets about something, right? It's always when it's always when the people are screaming, oh, Ponzi scheme, or it's dead for good. And everyone gets out, right? Like all that money gets out is when you see that rebound and then that steady climb back up and then it just shoots off. And that's not just with this, it's with crypto. It's with, you know, a lot of these markets. And I think we're very close to nearing that point where people just forget about NBA Top Shot entirely outside of pack drops.
Yeah, I mean, I stopped looking a couple of weeks ago, and I think I told you at the time that that's basically when it took off last time. Was I stopped looking at it, and then I was frustrated with it, and I almost sold my entire account. And then like 3 days later, it all just went nuts, and I was like, man, I would have felt really dumb.
That would have been bad. Yeah, I mean, it went crazy. I thought the big pump or the initial pump was big, and then it pumped like 20 times bigger than that. So. Right. I don't think we see that again necessarily, at least not anytime soon, but don't sleep on it, man. Don't sleep on it quite yet. Anything else for the Hawks?
I want to walk back one thing I said about Orlando. I don't think anything's a priority regardless of Bamba, but if Bamba does sit and you can expect about 30 minutes from Carter, he's not bad at 6K on DraftKings. He still wouldn't be somebody that I'm prioritizing, but he would easily look like the top guy from Orlando.
Okay. I've got 3 down, 6 to go here, and we're going to the Philadelphia 76ers. Now, this was pretty noticeable. The Philadelphia 76ers on the road today are 2.5-point dogs against the Miami Heat. So, you know, the best team in terms of record in the Eastern Conference is a dog to Miami today. Joel Embiid also questionable. So, does that suggest that he could be out? I know how you are. You'll say, well, I don't want to make any speculation, right? And Embiid's been weird in that sense, but you'd think they'd be favored in a spot like this. Jimmy Butler's questionable on the Miami side too.
Yeah, it's to me just kind of a wait and see spot. You know, another 7:30 game, so should hopefully have news before the slate locks. But it's also not one that I'm overly interested in. Miami plays at a crawling pace. They're good defensively. Embiid certainly is capable of having a monster game here if he plays, but you still have to be concerned, you know, even if he plays.
LeVert out.
LeVert's out?
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess TJ McConnell's going to look good.
Yeah, really good. Sorry, go ahead.
You know, like even if Embiid plays, you go back to the concerns that you voiced recently where it's, you know, how many minutes is he playing? We saw him play like 20 or on pace for 26 minutes, played 22 in the game the other day. It's tough to think that he's getting 34 or 35 minutes, even if this game's competitive, with the Sixers a game and a half up in the East. So I would have trouble, you know, outside of large field tournaments really caring much about Embiid. Same kind of goes for Simmons and for Harris. Like if Embiid's in, they're just not really at a price point that I'm that interested in a matchup, an unappealing matchup against Miami. If Embiid's out, both of those guys look better, but you still have a ton of options that look good on the slate. And then even at the center position, you know, you go back and look at what Philadelphia did in their last game without Embiid. Mike Scott played 26 minutes, which is close to useless. Dwight Howard only played about 22 minutes. If you're going to get 26 to 28 from Dwight Howard, then he looks like a pretty good fantasy option. But if you can only count on around 22, he's not even going to look that good here.
Yeah, I agree. And this game is actually totally meaningless, and I'll tell you why. The Sixers' final 2 games after tonight are both against the Orlando Magic.
Oh, yeah, so they're not losing them both.
No. Like they could rest everyone for both games, just win one game against the Magic, and they'd be good to go because they hold the tiebreaker against the Nets. The Nets have 2 games to go. The Sixers have 3 games to go. They could lose both of these and then win against the Magic in the last game of the season, and still win the conference. So, you know, That makes sense. I think unless maybe the Bucks could win 3. I don't know. They're not going to lose either of those games to the Magic is what I'm saying. So if Embiid sits today, I wouldn't be shocked. I do want to ask you though, and you hit on it a little bit here, but just to dig in a little bit more based on the ownership and the price point for somebody like Ben Simmons, if Embiid is out, you talk about Scott, you talk about all of the playing time here that we're dealing with. Simmons did play 37 last game, and that lost to the Indiana Pacers. And he started off great, and then he had 3 turnovers and like 5 fouls in the final 6 minutes of the game. So good stuff there. But is that mid 7K price point appealing enough if Embiid sits, or is this matchup, again, I know you talked about this a bit, but is the matchup against Miami just kind of so miserable that we can go elsewhere?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of where I'm leaning. Like, it definitely would make Simmons look better. It would make Harris look better, but they're not exactly underpriced. I mean, like, for example, if Embiid's in, you're not even really thinking twice about Harris or Simmons at these salaries in this matchup. For the season, Simmons has averaged 1.18 DraftKings points per minute in the games that he's played without Embiid and with Harris, which is good, but it's not like that really stands out on this slate. And then you assume he's probably going to produce at a below average rate compared to his average against Miami. So it's still just, they would, I guess, be elevated to like secondary plays, but I still wouldn't find myself prioritizing them over a lot of other guys.
Anything else from Philly?
Nope.
What about Miami here? We'll assume Butler's in for now. If Joel Embiid sits, right, what does that do for a guy like Bam Adebayo, who, has been a great player all season long? He is one of the more versatile bigs in the league. He's a quality enough rebounder, although his rebounding totals have certainly taken a hit lately. Nice playmaker for his size. He can rack up some stocks, and he's a solid enough scorer. Does Bam stand out against a far inferior now front court if Embiid is sidelined?
I don't know that I would say stand out at 8,600, but he would definitely look better if he doesn't have to deal with Embiid. And then also, I mean, if Butler were to sit, he would also look better. Yeah,
that would be big.
Yeah, he benefits there as well. So there is the potential for Bam, who I think is a decent option. There's the potential for him to turn into a much better play if Embiid's out and if Butler is out. Like you said, he does do a lot of things well. He rebounds well. He can pass. He can score. And he played about 34 minutes last game. Miami's tied for the 5 seed right now with the Knicks. I assume they would rather play the Hawks than play the Bucks. I don't know for sure, but that would be my guess. So I think they probably want to keep the 5 seed. But, the point being, I don't think we have minutes concerns here. It's just a matter of how does the matchup change? Like, does Embiid end up playing and does Butler end up playing?
Okay. Aaron Holiday is also out for the Pacers. So how many minutes are we giving McConnell now?
Mid-30s, I think.
You would think so.
I mean, so the starting lineup, you're going to have McDermott, Brissett. I'm guessing it's going to be McDermott, Brissett, Holiday, Sabonis, and McConnell. Like,
I don't know who else it would be.
Yeah, I mean, they could start like Keelan Martin or something, but like I'm assuming it's going to be McConnell. We've seen him play massive minutes at times this year with Brogdon out, and then LeVert being out. That kind of takes the other ball handler outside of Sabonis off the floor. So I'm guessing you get a ton of minutes from McConnell.
I'm just looking here. Who gets the backup point guard minutes? Like Cassius Stanley?
Domantas Sabonis?
Yeah, seriously. But in all in actual seriousness, in the, say, however many minutes that McConnell doesn't play, it's got to be someone like Stanley, right? Or they just throw out a forward there because it really doesn't matter at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I think the answer for who's handling the ball when McConnell's not on the floor is Sabonis.
It's Sabonis, but I was just saying, who's the body going to be if we were to look to try and figure this rotation out?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're going to get Keelan Martin playing more. He's kind of taken a step forward recently and been getting more minutes. So I think he benefits. I mean, Justin Holiday can play multiple positions. Brissett can play multiple positions. So can McDermott. I mean, that's one thing Indiana still has in their favor is that they have guys that can defend multiple positions. So I don't think they necessarily have to find a specifically a guard to take a bunch of these minutes.
No, neither do I. I guess what I'm saying though is I wouldn't be shocked if McConnell played huge minutes, just given the fact that it's him or it's just throwing random pieces behind them and trying to get a 5-man rotation or a 5-man lineup out there. So
yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, you could see McConnell play 36 minutes tonight for sure.
Yeah, the other I'll feel a lot better if he's in the starting lineup because to me that would signal that that's what they're doing.
Yeah, if he's not in the starting lineup and it's and it is Justin Holiday, like you said, or something like that, that would be a little bit more concerning for sure. I'd still give him around 30, but still.
The other thing they could do with the starting lineup is go with like Holiday, Brissett, McDermott, Sabonis, Batadze.
Yeah, you could.
And then just assume that Sabonis is running the offense. But yeah, my guess is McConnell starts. If he doesn't start, he's still a good play in tournaments, I think, because even if he comes off the bench, there's a pretty good chance, I think, that he plays like the entire second quarter, the entire fourth quarter, and like 6 minutes apiece of the first and the third. That's something we've seen him do in the past as well. If he starts, though, it would just make it, I think, make me feel even better about his playing time.
Back to close this other game out. Do you have anything else from the Heat that stands out?
I don't. I mean, if Butler sits, it benefits Tyler Hero. We saw him start the second half last game. He ended up playing 34.5 minutes in that game. He would look better. Goran Dragic's production should go up and his playing time goes up a little bit. Kendrick Nunn would look a little bit better. But if we assume Butler plays, there's nothing that really stands out.
Okay. Let's talk about San Antonio and the New York Knicks. Hit that thumbs up. We got 1,800 people watching and climbing, and 274 likes. That means like 1,426 of you, around that number, haven't hit thumbs up. I'm not asking for everyone to do it. That'd be great. But, if those of you who are kind enough to do it, realizing that that's just a shitty ratio here, that would be great as well. San Antonio and the New York Knicks. Spurs coming into Madison Square Garden as 5-point dogs, 216 total. Certainly looking to be a slog fest here. Pretty slow-paced game. And on the San Antonio Spurs side, you're getting the exact same guys out and in as we've seen ever since Derek White went down. So are there any price points like a DeJounte Murray, who has played quite well, that give you enough meat left on the bone to get there? Or do we shy away from the Spurs today?
Yeah, I mean, I'm shying away here. I think it's kind of the same thing that we've been seeing, where if they're as like a last piece in, you're getting upside from guys like DeJounte Murray, DeRozan, Jakob Poeltl. Murray in competitive games typically is going to give you 34, 35 minutes. Same goes for DeRozan. Poeltl, we've seen kind of all over the place, but he can top 30 minutes as well. The problem is just, I think the pricing is very reasonable, especially when you consider the ceilings. It's just that, like you said, this game should be very slow paced. New York's a very good team defensively, and they're a really slow team. Only about a 106 implied total for San Antonio, one of the lowest on the slate. So you still can look to Murray, DeRozan, Poeltl, like assuming they're going to be low owned, but they also will be low owned for a reason. And the reason is that there's a ton of really good plays on this slate, and they're facing the Knicks.
All right. Now Chris Boucher's questionable for Toronto. That's great. I mean, we'll get to that. It might not be that big of a deal, but when we get there, we will talk about it. He did play huge minutes last time everyone else was out in his return after like a significant hiatus. So we'll see. Do you want to go to the Knicks then, or you hit on everything for the Spurs?
Yeah, I think we can go to the Knicks.
All right. Reggie Bull, most of these guys are just all probable. So, take that for what it's worth. Emmanuel Quickly is questionable, but his minutes have kind of been erratic, and it's like 16 or 24 at the most. So not really sure that makes a huge difference. Do you get to a Julius Randle here or a Barrett at 6,500 or anybody for the New York Knicks today?
I think Randall's really, really interesting. His salary has come down. I mean, he's down to 9,400 on DraftKings. It wasn't that long ago he was 10 or 10-1. And
9,000 on FanDuel.
Yeah, so he's at a price point where it's not going to be that hard to play him alongside like a Sabonis or a Giannis or a Jokic. And depending, exactly what value opens up, you could potentially have it where you can get three of those guys, with Randall being a little bit cheaper than them. So you're still getting tons of minutes. He's second over the last month in minutes per game to Russell Westbrook. He played 43 minutes last game, including overtime. So he played, another like 38 in regulation. So, and he's averaging about 1.3 DraftKings points per minute. So just based on how many minutes he should play and his production, I think that Randall's underpriced here. He stands out. I don't think anything else from the Knicks really stands out. Derrick Rose playing more minutes, especially with Quickly out, but his salary has come up a bit. RJ Barrett, his salary has come up to, I think, where it should be. So, those guys still have the potential to play well, especially if Quickly sits again and Burks sits. They would get more minutes, but Randall's the one that really stands out to me.
Okay. Kelly Sullivan gave us $2 to say, FYI, James Watts, the GOAT, is in chat. So that's cool. One thing I find kind of interesting about Randall, and this is just, on a broader scale, a lot of people will see production come down and not look at it in context. His last 4 matchups are Lakers, Clippers, Suns, Nuggets, all of which were on the road. 6 straight road games for the New York Knicks and Julius Randle. Lakers, Clippers, Phoenix, Denver. Those aren't exactly the easiest matchups, Adam, 2 of which were complete blowouts. One was a blowout losses. One was a win against the Clippers, and then he played 44 minutes in that 2-point loss to the Lakers. So now you travel back home, you get a much better matchup. I'm not saying it's great. I'm not saying that the Spurs are the fastest paced team in the league, nor am I saying that they're the worst defense. But compared to some of those other teams Randall's faced, if he gets 38, 40 minutes here, and over the last month prior to Russell Westbrook just getting absurd minutes, Randall led the league in minutes per game. There is a lot to say that he could just explode one of these nights.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing just goes back to the fact that the salary dropped because of his performances in those matchups.
In those hard matchups, exactly.
Right. Yeah, like this isn't necessarily the matchup that you look at. He's not walking into a matchup with the Wizards where you just go, wow, this is the polar opposite of what he had. But the big thing is that the salary dropped. If he was 10-1 or 10-2, I wouldn't be that interested tonight either. But when you're going to take, like 10, you're going to get like a 10% discount for no other reason than he's had some mediocre games and tough matchups. And they weren't even all bad games. They just weren't, as good as he had been playing. There's no real reason to think that anything's changed with Julius Randle.
All right. Hey, one more question for you. Derrick Rose. He's played 39 minutes last game, went off for 27, 6, and 6. 32 minutes prior to that, shot 65% from the field, had 25, 6, and 8. Handling a ton of touches, just really been a high usage player over the past couple of games, all season really. But the crazy thing is a lot of times when a guy's minutes come up a lot, their efficiency and their usage comes down. Now, efficiency likely would come down if he continued to get this type of run. But can we anticipate Thibodeau, who we know what his deal is, can we anticipate him giving Derrick Rose big minutes again today with the Heat 6th seed in the West, potentially move up to 5th seed or even 4th?
I think it depends who's active for the Knicks. Since joining the Knicks, Rose has averaged 30.8 minutes per game in games that Alec Burks has not played. He's averaged 25 minutes per game in the games that Burks has. So I think, you have Burks questionable or probable. You have Quickly, who may or may not play. I think he's less important because Ntilikina did play 23 minutes last game in the game where Rose played 33 minutes or 34 minutes in regulation. So I think the big thing here is Burks. Like, you're probably still going to get 28 to 30 minutes, I would think, from Rose. But I think that if Burks is out, it's more likely you get that extra couple of minutes on top.
Okay. And he's priced up given that Burks has been out. So that makes it a little bit more difficult too. Sacramento, Memphis Grizzlies. The Kings will be without De'Aaron Fox once again. They're 8-point dogs against the Grizzlies, 229 total. Harrison Barnes and Marvin Bagley are also doubtful. So this makes things pretty interesting. Grizzlies have won 3 straight games. And now we come into this, starting with the Sacramento Kings, where Metu is projected for the highest ownership of any player right now on Draftkings. Let's start with him. Marvin Bagley not expected to play. How much are you getting to, or do you intend on getting to someone like Metu tonight?
I think he should be one of the higher owned guys. I think he's clearly one of the better values. He started in place of Bagley last game. He played 29.3 minutes, didn't lose minutes at the end of that game, despite it being a bit of a blowout. He's averaged for the season, he's played 127 minutes without Fox, Halliburton, or Bagley on the floor. He's averaged 0.91 DraftKings points per minute. Overall, he's been in that range as well. He's a pretty productive guy when he's on the floor. And so I still think, even though the salary came up a little bit, I still think he's underpriced. Overall this season, he's 1 fantasy point per minute. So I think he definitely looks like one of the better values tonight.
Okay. Do you want to hit on, well, we actually have plenty to hit on here with the Sacramento Kings specifically. Outside of Metu, Terrence Davis had that. He was in tournament winning lineups not long ago. Actually, a couple of times recently. He's played really well. He's got 30 plus minutes in 4 of his last 5 games. But man, that price is getting to a point where it feels a little bit restrictive, along with a bunch of players on this Kings team right now. We say it so often, when the same players are out for an extended period of time, you start to see those salaries of guys that were initially value plays start to stabilize. Obviously Bagley being out, or doubtful at least, introduces something new into the equation because Metu hasn't really benefited from no Harrison Barnes, from no De'Aaron Fox, but everyone else is already priced to a point where it makes it a little bit tougher.
Yeah, for sure. And I think when you talk about someone like Terrence Davis, he has been really good. In the 5 games he's played without Halliburton and Fox, he's averaged 1.2 DraftKings points per minute. He's got a 25.5% usage rate, a 17.5% assist percentage, and he's averaged about 29 minutes per game. So all of that looks good. The salary rising just makes it so that the risk is higher. I mean, the floor is still relatively low for that salary. Like there's no I don't think if you keep playing these games out, he continues to average 1.2 DraftKings points per minute. I think it's more likely he settles in around 1, to 1.1. And if he's playing 28 to 30 minutes, then that's kind of, he's priced where he should be on average, but he does still have opportunities to outperform that. Same can be said for Buddy Hield, who is playing really big minutes, and we've seen take on more of a role in terms of rebounding and assists with those guys out. And then Delon Wright, I think, he's expensive, but he's he's averaging over 36 minutes per game without those guys. He's averaging over 1.2 DraftKings points per minute. He's rebounding at a high level. He's getting a ton of assists, and the usage rate is only around 20%. But when you're playing that many minutes, you're still getting a lot of shots up. So I think that they're expensive and they're not safe. But if you end up needing a mid-range option, I think all these guys look pretty good.
Okay. Memphis, big favorites here at home. What used to be called the Grindhouse back in the Marc Gasol, Mike Conley, Tony Allen days. You remember that team where they would just stick every opponent in the mud and they'd play at the slowest pace in the league, and it was Zebo. Boring basketball, but they'd always win.
Yeah, they had Zebo also.
Oh, that's Zach Randolph. Yeah, they never really got there. And I remember Charles Barkley always loved them because he said a jump shooting team could never win the finals. Remember that?
Yep.
Yeah, and well, boy, was he wrong.
They had Battier too, then, didn't they?
Did they?
I think so.
No. Was it Battier? I know they had Mario Chalmers for a while there.
They had him for a while. Battier was definitely on Memphis. I just don't remember if it was.
Was he? Let's see. Shane Battier was on Memphis from 2001 to 2005, and then he played a half a season there in 2010. So, yeah. Good stuff.
Yeah, so he missed. He wasn't on the Zach Randolph teams.
Okay, yeah.
Other than 2010.
Right, he came back for a half a season or so. Let's get into the Grizzlies here. Jonas Valanciunas is questionable. He was sidelined last game. So I guess, do you have him in with this back injury?
Yeah, I have him in right now, but obviously that's one of the biggest pieces of news that we're waiting on.
It is a pretty big piece of news. Let's break down both sides of this. If he does play, what do you do with Jonas Valanciunas? And if he doesn't play, do we go back to, it's crazy because Brandon Clark last game played 19 minutes. Fortunately, still gave us a pretty solid game. Meanwhile, Xavier Tillman played 23 minutes and was, a per minute guy, but these guys were wildly high owned. And, it didn't exactly come to fruition like the way many of us envisioned it.
Yeah, but I think the thing to keep in mind too is that game was out of hand by the fourth quarter, basically. Like John Contra played 26 minutes. He played the entire fourth. That's probably not going to happen again. I think if this game
Dallas, right? They smoked Dallas.
Yeah, they won 133 to 104.
Yeah.
I think that, if the game is more competitive, you probably get closing run from Xavier Tillman, which would put him around 26 or 27 minutes. Clark maybe, again, only plays around 20 minutes, but he could play more. I don't think it's necessarily safe. But 4,300 for Clark in this matchup, I think probably not going to be going there. It wouldn't be going there in cash, but still has upside in tournaments. Xavier Tillman at 4,200. I think if Valanciunas is out, looks like a pretty good option. The prices have come up enough to where there's at least still some risk, but then you do also have Jaren Jackson back here as well, which changes things a bit too. Like he potentially, potentially he could start in place of Tillman. I think it's probably more likely that he starts alongside him and Desmond Bane doesn't start.
Let's see something here. Never mind. I thought I had some news come up. Wanted to make sure that we were all on the same page. Do you like Memphis out? I mean, the only real stuff we have going on right now is you've got somebody like Grayson Allen out, who's been out, is week to week at this point. We've talked so often about how many players they run in this rotation. Does this game on the Memphis side appeal to you if Joe Val plays?
If he plays, I don't find it that appealing. Like, I think that Valanciunas and Morant are obviously in really good spots. Valanciunas should do really, really well here if he's able to play, but they're also priced up. The one piece that I think is volatile enough that I'm really interested in is Jaren Jackson Jr. We've seen him starting. He played 26 minutes and then 27 minutes, but in both of those games, he's had like a little bit of shortened rotations. And this is someone that we know has dealt with foul trouble in the past, but in games where he's not dealing with any foul trouble, does he get to 30 minutes? And I think there's at least a possibility that he does. But, even if you get around 28 minutes from him here at 5,900 against the Kings, he's got a really high ceiling, I think.
Anything else for the Grizz?
Nope.
All right. Let's keep it moving here. Before we do, if you guys haven't heard of Jock Market yet, well, that's what I'm here to tell you about, because today's show, The Deeper Dive, is sponsored by Jock Market. They turn fantasy sports into a stock exchange. If you're wondering what that means, well, I can tell you. You don't have to wait till the end of the game to make money, because Jock Market allows you to buy and sell shares of players in real time for real money with guaranteed payouts for all shares at the end of each night. You got baseball, you got basketball, you got hockey, you got PGA. You can make money every hour, down to the minute, down to the second on Jock Market. So here's what you do. You buy and sell shares, but the biggest point and the biggest way to really make money here is use the pre-game IPO to pick up shares of your favorite players. Then you can buy, sell, or hold them during the game based on your analysis. So there's an IPO period where your analysis, you evaluate these players, see where you think are underpriced, and then obviously sell them if you think throughout the day or during the game they're overpriced, or hold till the end. So many different ways to make money doing this, and it's a whole lot of fun. You'll see the show from 7 to 7:30 after Live Before Lock, where Greg and Eric teach you exactly how to do this and give you the players that they're buying, selling, and holding throughout that 30-minute show. If you use the promo code Awesemo20, AWESEMO20, all one word, you get a $20 bonus on your first deposit. It's an exclusive offer only for the Awesemo community. Take advantage of it. Download the Jock Market app today and get started. Awesemo20 will get you $20 when you sign up as a part of the Awesemo community. All right, let's talk about Toronto and Chicago.
We got some Atlanta news, kind of.
Go for it.
Nate McMillan says that Bogdanovich, Gallinari, Capella, and Young are game time decisions.
Okay, well, it is a 7:30 game. Hopefully we get that news.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily know if we will at this point, but game time decision doesn't always mean 10 minutes prior. They still have to report, 30 minutes prior?
Yeah, well, my guess is that we'll get the news basically as the slate is starting. But the good thing is there's only the one early game, so you're going to have room to adjust. There's two, but Clippers Charlotte doesn't have all that much. I thought that one was oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it's two. But I mean, if you're getting away from I think most of the exposure from either of those early games is going to be in the Milwaukee Indy game, particularly on the Pacers side. Yeah,
exactly.
The Raptors are without Siakam, Van Vliet, Lowry, Jordan. I got to change Boucher to questionable. OG Anunoby, and then Chris Boucher has been upgraded from out to questionable. You have to think in a spot like this that, I mean, some of these guys are just going to be gunning, right? Gary Trent Jr. is a pure scorer. He really doesn't do anything outside of that. It's hard to envision a situation where he's not getting up as many shots as humanly possible. But I said the same thing about Terrence Ross when Orlando traded everyone away, and that never happened. But from Jalen Harris to Malachi Flynn to Watanabe to Freddie Giuseppe, there are a lot of spots here that we need to talk about, all of them pulling considerable ownership right now. And I don't think that's going to change even if Boucher plays.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I mean, it's just a matter of, are they going to have 8 guys or 9 guys? And then, of course, exactly how the minutes get split up, because Boucher did somehow play 37 and a half minutes. He was the only guy on the team that played more than 31 minutes last game after being out for, I don't remember how long. But so if he plays, I mean, I assume he's playing a lot of minutes again, and he would look very good because we know that Chris Boucher produces at a high level when he's able to play, and he's only 6,800 on DraftKings. But, the rest of these guys, there's still increased opportunities. You mentioned Gary Trent, who played about 31 minutes in that game. He has a 27.5% usage rate or 28% usage rate, actually, without Siakam, Lowry, and Van Vliet on the floor. 1.12 DraftKings points per minute over 147 minutes. Stanley Johnson's at 0.87 DraftKings points per minute without those guys on the floor. He played, he started, only played about 21 minutes. You saw Jalen Harris close the game over him, but, you know, he'd be someone that if you're playing a lot of lineups at 3,700, you can still roll the dice on. Same goes for Bembry at 4K, Freddie Gillespie at 3,600, backed up Kem Birch mostly, played a few minutes alongside him, but ended up playing 25.1 minutes. If you're getting that many minutes from him, he's going to look like a good value. He's averaged 0.93 DraftKings points per minute without the main three guys on the floor for Toronto, and he's only 3,600. Jalen Harris would, I think, be a much better play if Boucher sits. Harris played 25 minutes against the Clippers last game, but if you're taking 37 minutes from Boucher out, I think that you're probably getting a few more minutes for Jalen Harris at 3,800. It's a team where I don't think you can really go wrong with these guys. It's just a matter of you know, who you prioritize, I think.
Jimmy Butler, a game time decision now too. How many of them are you willing to roster in the same lineup? It's a question I ask you a lot, but if they only have 8, right? If they only have 8, how many are you willing to get to, especially given that, just to set this up a little bit, and you kind of hit on it, especially given that none of these guys are priced up. So it's not like, oh, okay, they have 8, but they're Houston Rocket prices, like we saw where their prices came up considerably. These guys are all really cheap outside of Trent, Flynn, and Birch, who no one really intends on playing anyway. Yeah,
like ideally, I think it's 3 still. But because of what you said about the pricing, I think if you ended up with 4, especially if it were mostly the cheap ones, it would be fine. Because the other thing there, not only are they cheap, but when you think about where else we have value on the slate, like for example, Indiana, most of the guys that you're interested in from Indiana aren't minimum salary. You know, so I think it also depends on Atlanta. If Atlanta starts ruling guys out, I would definitely I'd lean more strongly towards 3 from Toronto, because I don't think I'm going to need like 4 from Toronto and 3 from Atlanta. I don't, you know, you got to score points somewhere. So I think if the Atlanta guys play, I would want 3. I hopefully would only have 3 from Toronto, but 4 wouldn't be the end of the world. If Atlanta rules their guys out, I would cap it at 3 from Toronto.
Okay, fair enough. The Toronto Raptors are off the board, and that's a lot to talk about. But the Chicago Bulls on the other side, I mean, if you're wondering just how shorthanded Toronto is, they're 10.5-point dogs to the Chicago Bulls. The game has a 217.5 total. I'll say this much. Zach LaVine over 34.5 points, rebounds, and assists today is something I like quite a decent amount today against this shorthanded Toronto team. I still anticipate LaVine getting good minutes here. Sure, they could blow them out, but I just don't think Chicago's a good enough team for me to bank on a blowout here. LaVine's a phenomenal scorer. The peripherals are decent enough, and even with Vooch on the floor, he's been a good player. So over 34.5, that's my prop for today. And if you go to oddshopper.com, you can check out all of the best props across the books that are available to you. Shop around, set alerts, make sure you set a watch list. You can track your bets. There's a ton of good promotional spots for all these books that are trying to get people's attention and get their customer base up with sports betting becoming legal everywhere. So over there, you can check all the player props out. You can sort them, filter them by name, and a million different ways to do it. So it's pretty cool, and it's entirely free. You don't have to pay a cent. With Chicago, though, Zach LaVine from a DFS perspective, a whole lot less appealing to me than he is from a prop perspective today, as is most of the Chicago Bulls team.
Yeah, I am interested in Vooch here, though. We're still seeing a lot of minutes from him. He played 36 minutes last game. He played 36 minutes the game before that. Back-to-back blowouts where he played 31 and 32. Then another competitive game with 36, 37, 35, 39. Like, you're getting a lot of minutes from Vooch. And in the games that he's played with Zach LaVine this year, he still averaged 1.47 DraftKings points per minute. I think that, like, even if he's similarly priced to Embiid, I think if Embiid were to play, you still would expect a few more minutes from Vooch than from Embiid. Certainly the minute ceiling, I think, would be higher for Vooch. And, you know, it's not like it's a bad spot at all against Toronto. If Chicago blows out Toronto, there's a very good chance that Vooch had a very large hand in that. So I think that he's at a price point where he's not really going to stand out, because, you know, people, when they're paying more than 10K, they're going to look to Jokic, they're going to look to Giannis and Sabonis, and, you know, they should. But I really don't think that Vooch is overpriced, given the fact that this guy can just go out there and give you 60 fantasy points here.
It's fair. It's just tough, because is he overpriced? Probably not, but compared to some of the other players, would you rather have, let me just pull ownership up here, because I would imagine Vooch's ownership is super low, right? Yeah, like 4% projected ownership right now. And then where is Giannis where's Sabonis coming in at? 16?
22.
Oh, we got an update, I'm assuming, recently? Okay.
10 minutes ago.
10 minutes ago, 22. Is Vooch still at like 4 around that?
Yeah, like 3.5.
All right, so that makes a little bit more sense then. It's just
Yeah.
Sabonis I'd take in a vacuum over Vooch any day of the week right now.
Yeah, for sure. And I think you're also just going to get a lot of lineups. I mean, it's definitely trending towards there being a lot of value tonight. I don't think you're going to only be able to roster one of those guys either.
All right. Anything else for the Bulls, or should we move on to Denver, Minnesota?
Yeah, I think we can move on. It's pretty much Vooch. Levine's fine too, but I prefer Vooch.
No Michael Porter Jr. today for the Denver Nuggets. They'll be without Barton and Monte Morris. Well, Barton we knew would be out. He's been out for 11 games now. I think this makes 12. They're 2.5-point favorites though. 2.5-point favorites. How about that? Against the Minnesota Timberwolves in a game with a 230.5 total. Jokic priced alongside the same neighborhood as Giannis, as Sabonis and company today. Where does he stand out? You said at the beginning of the show you like all three of them. If you were to rank all three of them, where would Jokic land?
I think second. Like I think I give the slight edge to Sabonis and then Jokic and then Giannis, but I think it's really close, especially between Jokic and Sabonis. I'm just mildly concerned with Jokic's minutes here. The fact that they're resting Michael Porter Jr. concerns me a little bit, combined with the fact that Jokic only played 32.9 minutes in a competitive game against the Hornets last time out. You know, earlier in the season, we were seeing 36, 37 minutes from Jokic. Then as the front court started to get healthier, he dropped to like 34, 35. Then last game, he got 33. And the Nuggets are just, they're one of these teams where their standing could change or their seating could change, but I don't know how much they're prioritizing that over maybe running a little bit shorter rotation here. So on the one hand, Porter being out does open up more usage and rebounding for Jokic. On the other hand, I think there's a non-zero chance that you see a little bit shorter rotation for Jokic than normal. So I still think he's a very good play. I just think I feel better about Sabonis's minutes given everything than I do about Jokic's.
JaMychal Green's getting some love today, and that generally scares the shit out of me because he's JaMychal Green. But with Porter Jr. out, someone's got to do it. Green actually hasn't been a bad per minute guy this year. And I guess you could make the argument now that do you have him starting?
I think it's either him or Millsap.
So if he does start, you could at least say this much. Before, when JaMychal Green was starting, you had him starting sometimes alongside Jokic, Porter Jr., and Jamal Murray. If he starts today, it'll be alongside Jokic, but it won't be alongside any other really talented offensive players that are going to soak up a lot of opportunity and steal it away from him. So I think a lot of times I hate when bench players, when we use their per minute production and translate that to the starting lineup, because it's not a 1-for-1. Like a lot of times they will see decreased production playing with the starters. And we've seen that with JaMychal Green, but maybe this helps him a little bit, just given that Denver's without two of their top offensive players this time.
Yeah, JaMychal Green has been absolute garbage playing alongside Jokic this year.
It's not surprising though.
Yeah, he's been extremely productive when Jokic is not on the floor.
Yep.
So I think that he's cheap enough where if he starts, the minutes sort of alleviate those concerns. But it's no guarantee that you get a fantasy point per minute from him if he starts, because he's like a 0.75 fantasy point per minute guy with Jokic on the floor. Paul Millsap as a starter this year has averaged 0.9 DraftKings points per minute. I would actually feel better. I would feel better about rostering Millsap as a starter than Green as a starter, if that makes sense.
Anybody else for Denver?
Yeah, I mean, I think that everybody kind of benefits, at least to some extent, from Porter being out, because there are rebounds available. There is scoring available. I think it probably makes Aaron Gordon look a little bit better at 5,100. Campazzo should play big minutes again at 5,800. Not that you're going to be able to prioritize him at that price. But, I think Gordon is in play. I think that whoever starts from Millsap or Green is a pretty good value too.
What do you got from Minnesota?
Not a ton. I mean, I'm never going to talk anyone off of going to Karl-Anthony Towns or D'Angelo Russell. They both give you a really high ceiling. Anthony Edwards, you can say the same, but he's even more expensive than D'Angelo Russell is. But overall, I don't think it's a super appealing matchup here. And the thing that I really run into is like, I'd rather roster Vooch than Towns. I'd rather roster, any of the other 10K guys than Towns. So I think that makes it kind of tough. Russell's at a price point that I do think he has a really high ceiling, but again, you're just gonna, I don't know how much that salary ends up fitting into roster builds tonight.
All right, now I'll let you close this show out with Phoenix and the Portland Trailblazers. Portland 3.5-point road dogs, and this game actually has a really high total at 234.5.
Yeah, and one piece of news that we got late in the day is that DeAndre Ayton is questionable tonight. If he's out, you could get some weird-looking Phoenix lineups. In their most recent games, you had Frank Kaminsky backing up Ayton. So he, potentially could play more. That's something that, this is the only late game though, and I'm not going to hold out with as much value as we're going to have on the slate. I wouldn't hold out, hoping that like I get Frank Kaminsky and then get screwed if he doesn't play. Beyond that news though, I think it's just a game where like there's a lot of secondary plays because we know Devin Booker, we know Chris Paul, they both can put up really big numbers. This is a game that both teams, have at least a little bit to play for. Phoenix is 2 games up on the Clippers for the 2 seed. They're 1.5 games behind the Jazz. Portland is currently the 5 seed, tied with Dallas, a game up on the 7 seed. So, both teams would probably like to win. More important for Portland than it is for Phoenix, I think. But you're probably getting full minutes from Paul and Booker and Bridges. So any of those guys look fine. And then on the other side, Damian Lillard, of course, can go out and put up a monster game. The problem is just like, if Trae Young plays, I would rather go to Trae Young again than Lillard. But if Young sits, it does kind of open up that price range at point guard for Lillard. McCollum and Nurkic, both reasonable options as well. No one guy that stands out, but I think, the normal names from these teams are all reasonable plays.
All right. That'll do it for us. Greg and Eric coming up next. One thing I should remind you of too, for tomorrow to close out the work week, Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports has a special deal for anyone who watches the NBA Deeper Dive and the Live Before Lock starting at 5 p.m. All new and existing Yahoo DFS users receive a free contest entry into their big NBA Baller contest, 100% free entry into Yahoo's main GPP contest tomorrow. So tune in to the NBA Deeper Dive Live Before Lock at 5 p.m. Adam and I will see you back here soon. That Live Before Lock show and then MMA Strategy show with Pete Rogers and Jason Floyd coming up next. Good luck tonight, everyone.
It is the Awesemo NBA Live Before Lock show, and oh boy, we've got a doozy today. Eric Lindquist and I, and I always push this on Thursday nights that you and I, we're going to be talking not just about Fanduel and Draftkings for the next hour, but also the jock market slate for 30 minutes. After that, we're going to go over some of the IPOs. We're going to be bidding on guys, but we're going to be making late swaps the entire time as we go through this also. So you're going to want to stick around for the last 30 minutes because for sure, whoever Eric and I like in the next 30 minutes is going to be different than the guys we like in the next 40 minutes. And then is going to be different every 10 minutes after that as we go along. Because this slate is something. So Eric, just give me a list. Your top 100 most important injuries on this slate in descending order. Go ahead.
I'll probably remove my eyebrows by the end of this show. I mean, it's just like, I really don't even know what to think. Like, I think you've done a good job of surmising what the NBA late season is when you always say, I have no idea who I'm going to be rostering in 55 minutes. I really have no idea right now who I'm going to be rostering. I think I know I'm going to be rostering Metu. I think I know I'm going to be rostering some Terrence Davis. I think I know I'm going to be rostering Toronto Raptors, but other than that, there is nothing set in stone with my lineups.
Yeah, and actually that is a good point because while there is a whole lot that is uncertain, there's a handful of guys I know I'm getting to, and certainly some of the ones you mentioned there, but I would be remiss if I did not rattle off some of these injuries at the top of the program, just because I think it's funny almost to read off.
How much time we got?
Yeah.
An hour and 25 minute show. I don't think we can do it.
Yeah, let's try. Here are the key names at least. Jimmy Butler, questionable. Joel Embiid, questionable. Jonas Valanciunas, questionable. Chris Boucher, upgrade to questionable. That is the number one most annoying thing of the slate for me right now. Clint Capella, questionable. Bogdan Bogdanovic, questionable. DeAndre Ayton, questionable. Mo Bamba, questionable. There's a bunch of other ones, but those are really the core names that are questionable. There's a whole bunch of other guys that are probable. I'm not sweating them too much right now. I do feel like probable tag maybe that's a little more dicey this time of year when guys like Trae Young are probable, Nikola Jokic is probable. For now, I'm assuming the guys who are probable are in, and I'm much more concerned about the guys who are questionable, and then we're just going to react to news as it comes. But starting with the guys who are listed as questionable, which is the name that stands out to you that's going to impact your lineups the most once we get an update on their status?
You didn't say anything about the Atlanta Hawks, did you? You didn't?
Yeah, I did.
You did? Okay. So
yeah.
I didn't hear you when you were rattling them off. Again, that's what happens when you say 55 names in a row, is that I might miss one or two. But right now, I mean, we just got news that literally the entire starting five, basically, of the Atlanta Hawks is a game time decision. We have no idea what's going to be happening there. So let's start with that. Also, because of how many good power forward / center plays you have over on DraftKings, I mean, the DeAndre Ayton thing isn't as pertinent as what it normally would be for me. Like Frank Kaminsky is going to be all right at 3,200 either way. You can kind of play that news, but considering it's the only late game that we have on this slate, it's not like a crazy priority for me to have. And I'm generally the person who likes to wait on my news, who likes to make those kind of stands, but there's so much good value in this early window that it feels a little unnecessary to try to pinpoint exactly what's going to happen there. I want to have some Frank Kaminsky exposure either way, but I don't want to miss out on some of these some of these pieces that we're getting in the early window.
Yeah, and by the way, we just had some news that just came across. Matisse Thybulle is likely out today. Furkan Korkmaz and Shake Milton are both expected to play. Of course, no update on Joel Embiid's status because that's not the important one. We're all sitting here going, "What's going to happen with Furkan Korkmaz?" No, Joel Embiid's status still up in the air.
I kind of am really hoping Joel Embiid plays. I really, really want him to play so I don't even have to worry about Dwight Howard, Mike Scott, and all of those things in my life. And Ben Simmons. I just don't want to add another team of value to this entire slate right now. I feel pretty good just kind of sitting here waiting on one major piece of news in Atlanta and kind of rolling from there.
So for me, it's going to be the Chris Boucher news, just because there's so many value plays that open up if he's ruled out. If he ends up playing, that really takes away from a lot of those guys. And by the way, assuming there's no kind of minutes restriction on Chris Boucher, Boucher is somebody who could wind up in 70% of my lineups or something like that. God. And obviously, then if he's out, then we've got, Jalen Harris, Yuta Watanabe, Malachi Flynn would see more usage. So that is the one to me that's going to impact the most of my lineups overall. Certainly the Atlanta news is going to create certain guys that I assume will, be in as potential value plays or whatever. But the Boucher news literally changes everything 100%.
It feels like that news came out 5 years ago, which is why I kind of blanked on it. But going over to Popcorn Machine, I mean, you had Chris Boucher hadn't played in 3 weeks, comes out and plays 37 minutes. Yeah, that's kind of ridiculous. Every single play on that team becomes viable. I do get worried that Nick Nurse is basically going to cap everybody at like around 30 minutes because this game is meaningless and has no point. But for the most part, like give Malachi Flynn your typical 30. He got limited under 30 last game out. Concerns me. Stanley Johnson may be the worst fantasy producer in the history of basketball at this point, carrying the torch for one Isaac Okoro, who's been much, much better of late. But yeah, Chris Boucher, definitely a piece that I think I'd be getting to as well. But if he's not playing, like, I mean, how much Freddie Gillespie is too much Freddie Gillespie?
You know, I don't even remember because I can't even recall what my exposures were, what I had stuff set to if Boucher was out. But I mean, I don't know that that he would necessarily start. I think they could still just go Kem Birch in the front court and then go, you know, the smaller starting lineup. Like they had Stanley Johnson start at power forward last game. I don't think that would make Stanley Johnson a great play given all the values that are on the slate. But I don't know that I'd be dying to get to Gillespie either. That would also depend on, you know, what the restriction is for Boucher if he's in or whatever. And then obviously I know you were talking about if he's out, but I just don't know what that starting lineup's going to look like if he doesn't play. But one thing also to note here is that even about you saying that you don't think they're going to play necessarily anybody big minutes. They don't have a choice. They would only have 8 active players if Boucher is out. It would be Flynn, Gary Trent, Kem Birch, Gillespie, Jalen Harris, Watanabe, Bembry, Stanley Johnson. Somebody has to play big minutes because there's a certain amount of minutes to fill and only 8 active guys in that spot.
Yeah, but nobody really got extended. So Gary Trent played 31. I think he becomes easily the most secure guy either way, like whether Boucher's in or out. I feel good about unloading the clip on him. But going around to everybody else, if you get news that Boucher is in, I'm really going to kind of monitor and be very sensitive to what ownership is coming in at. Whereas I won't give a rat's you know what if we end up getting Chris Boucher out. I mean, you can just unload on everybody because even in 30, like even if everybody like I don't see anybody getting to 38 minutes is what I'm saying is that there's not going to be the situation where we've had some of these shorthanded teams where guys play 42 minutes because they're trying to win a game, like earlier in the year with Miami and Philly in those games. But this is basically an 8-man rotation where they're just kind of like mixing and matching. And the way the pieces fit, like Yuta Watanabe can play 3 and 4. You have a guy like Kem Birch who has played smaller in Orlando, but like he's typically going to be the 5 on that team every time he's on the floor. Bembry can play at a couple positions. Like there's some positionality deals. Stanley Johnson, you had said, can play the 4 and the 3. You know, my big worry is that Stanley Johnson eats up more of the minutes and it doesn't go to a guy like Gillespie, who's a decent fantasy producer, a guy like, Yuta Watanabe, who actually has higher usage than I anticipated going through some of his box scores. So, I'm right there with you. Chris Boucher, gigantic piece of news, but I'm definitely going to be sensitive to ownership if we get him in.
So something else that's, crazy about last game is Chris Boucher went from not playing from a really long time. Then he played 37 and a half minutes last game. So if Boucher's in, is he going to be capped? Is he not going to be capped? Like Boucher has a really wide range of outcomes too. He's somebody who could play, 36 minutes or could play 28 or something. So a whole lot to monitor there. But I want to circle back on something you said before, because I do think that it's important, at least for discussion points, as far as it goes with 48 minutes until lock. And listen, with so much uncertainty, and there's no way we could confidently say who it is we're playing overall, but you did mention there are some names that you are going to be rostering, and I think that definitely holds true. So who are some of those guys you're getting to right now that is not going to change by the time we get to lock?
Yeah, so the first 2 guys right off the bat. So the Kings aren't technically eliminated. They're basically eliminated, but they're not technically eliminated. And Chimezie Metu playing 40, at 4,100 over on Draftkings and then 4,200 over on Fanduel. I know that I'm going to be rostering him. I know I'm going to be rostering Rashawn Holmes from this team. I know I'm going to be rostering Terrence Davis. And I also think that a guy it's hard for me to still get away from Delon Wright. Kind of doing everything for this basketball team, going to be playing in excess of 34, 35 minutes again, more than likely. This game still exists on the slate, and the Spurs are in action against the Knicks. I also have to throw it out there. Like if you're just talking about them playing this game straight up, the Spurs have the second toughest remaining schedule according to record right now. They have 3 games left. I believe they play the Suns back-to-back to finish out the season is what I had looked at last night. Let me know if I'm wrong about that. But the Spurs have a really tough path playing New York tonight and then 2 games that actually matter tomorrow. There's a realistic chance they go 0-3. You get back-to-back games for the Sacramento team. going into Memphis. A great game environment, only 4.5-point dogs. They get to play them back to back here. Like, there's a realistic chance the Kings could run the table. And I think it's greater than the 0.5% that I saw floating around that they could jump into the 10 seeds. So I think that Metu and Wright and everybody are a little bit more of a full bore than what's been expressed around the industry today.
All right. One thing I'm going to say, guys in the chat, we're jumping the gun with a lot of news here. Is Chris Boucher is questionable right now? Is he going to play? Is he not going to play? I don't know. He's questionable right now. If he was ruled out earlier in the day or expected to be out, was upgraded to questionable. But don't just jump in the chat and say like, hey, this guy's in, this guy's out. You're not really misdirecting anybody. You're just kind of being a dick at that point. We've got the news guy himself, the
Call
best news, the best newsman in the business. He'll post news when it becomes final. But right now we've got Chris Boucher currently listed as questionable to play. And yet when the news comes across, we'll announce it on the show and try to get to it as quickly as we can. But if anybody's making a point, if I'm saying something, if Eric's saying something, wait for us to finish, and then we'll bring up any injury news that comes across. There's going to be a lot of it during the show. A little bit of a lull right now in terms of breaking news because we just got a lot of it before we started. One of those pieces was Chris Boucher being upgraded to questionable. A whole bunch of guys on the Hawks are questionable to play. So just bear with us right here. We don't know what the news is, but it'll come in time. So for me, I agree with you on Metu. I certainly think that he is one of the guys who is one of the priority value plays on the slate to me. And then how much of him I get is actually ultimately going to depend on the status of Chris Boucher. Because if Boucher's out, there's a whole bunch of guys in that price range that I think are kind of comparable to Metu. But right now, Metu's kind of in a realm of his own with me assuming that Chris Boucher is going to play. Another thing that really stands out to me right now, the Pacers guys.
Yep.
Now that we know that Karis LeVert is out, we have Aaron Holiday out. We have Malcolm Brogdon obviously still out. We have Edmund Sumner out. We have Jeremy Lamb out. And then obviously Miles Turner, TJ Warren, those guys remain out. So now we've got a pretty thin rotation for the Indiana Pacers. I am personally expecting TJ McConnell to start at point guard, and he's going to be a very high priority play for me. As of right now, I have McConnell and Jokic as my two most exposed players. I'm going to have to change it a little bit if McConnell doesn't start, but what are you doing with McConnell, and do you assume that he's going to end up starting at point guard for Indiana?
So the last two games, I have been heavy on Keelan Martin. And he's been like 1% owned. And I've been going back and forth with EMAC. I felt bad because he couldn't get a CSV upload in for a turbo slate where he had like 50% Keelan Martin at like 2%. And he would have just absolutely smashed. So that made me feel really bad. I believe he put up something like, 37 fantasy points up against Cleveland. That would have been helpful at, basically 3,100, basically the minimum. But yeah, I like him again as well. So throw him into the mix as well. Kind of fills that small forward position as well. So that's useful. TJ McConnell, as you said, going to come in probably as the highest owned player on the slate on both sites. I don't have anything necessarily against him. The one counterpoint I'll say is just if you're finding a reason to get off of him, we've seen plenty of times that he goes out and he's not the most high usage guy all the time. Like he's very like his range of outcomes is very wide, and it really depends on his stocks. So he just has a ton of stock upside over on FanDuel. He can definitely ruin your slate very quickly, but he isn't necessarily going to go out there and chuck. And so I do think at 5,500, there's at least merit to maybe being lighter on him. Again, I haven't made any decisions because I think getting Boucher out would definitely make me want to just jam Malachi Flynn. I think he would become kind of the higher usage, higher fantasy point per minute guy that I'd want to target at the point guard position. I think that would be a tournament stand I was very comfortable in making if we get that Boucher news. But TJ McConnell, there's nothing that I could possibly say that's against him. I'm just letting it be known that there are paths for failure here. He's not like a guy who should be a 50% lock, but I totally understand why the ownership's there.
All right, we have some super chats here, so we can start answering these. Well, maybe anyway, because we've got Suave right here left us a super chat who said, any position I could fade on FanDuel? I'm a little confused by the question because no, they require you to roster two players. You could fade only playing one center. You don't have to play a second center on FanDuel. Other than that, I'm not totally sure what the question is.
That sounds like somebody who's trying to find a reason to unreg. Like he's trying to, he needs some help and some encouragement. You can click that X button. You can go play Xbox instead. Like that's an option.
You could also, by the way, Daniel Tice, he has been ruled out, and Thomas Sadaransky, a game time decision. But so for positions to fade, I'm trying to think of a way that question might make sense.
He gave us money
boy,
to ask it too.
I know, and I'm
drawing
drawing a blank. I'll say that. Listen, if you've played a bunch of lineups and it's hard for you to exit all of them at the same time against them, you can email support and they'll withdraw your entries for you pretty quickly before lock. But other than that, how about this? So on FanDuel, which position would you like to spend up for the most, and which position do you think makes the most sense for value? I don't know
spending
if
up at power forward. That's
okay.
the easy answer of the entire slate. As I was going through this last night, doing the slate starter, which by the way, tomorrow, the final slate starter of the entire season with Ryan Rinpack, as people better know him, the 50K genius that he is on FanDuel last night. Absolute smash, absolute GOAT. Have to give him my proper shout out to end out the regular season. But power forward really makes sense. It's the only position really where you have two guys over 10K that have like a guaranteed minutes situation. Nikola Jokic, we don't know what those minutes will look like, but I think he's still viable on FanDuel. Karl-Anthony Towns, same thing, but neither of those feel secure whatsoever. I think the secure parts are looking at that game, Milwaukee and Indiana facing each other. Obvious implications, for at least from one side of the ball for sure, for the Pacers that want to keep winning and move up. But Domantas Sabonis and Giannis, the spend ups. And if I'm looking for a position that I'm going to flat out punt, looking at this top end of small forward, it gets pretty gross outside of Kawhi Leonard. Like there's a number of guys that I'm willing to take some tournament shots. I can punt at small forward pretty easily there. Center because of Metu, I feel pretty good. He's my highest owned center here at the moment. Chris Boucher would become my highest owned center if he got ruled in, just because I don't know what that ownership would look like. I know that it's under 20% right now. And if that would hold true, like if we got that news 15 minutes before lock, I think you could be sitting on some really nice exposure to him. But I'll say power forward, easy spend up for me, and then probably spending down at small forward.
All right. So, I mean, I think it's going to depend so much on which guys get ruled out and which positions have the best value. But actually, I think center is a really good position to pay up for. And it's not that I don't think Metu is a good points per dollar play, but I have Jokic projected for so many more fantasy points than anybody else on the slate. And if we're going to see, say, Boucher get ruled out and a bunch of Toronto value opens up, or other guys are going to get ruled out, there's going to be value elsewhere. I just assume that Jokic is going to be fairly easy to get to. And while Metu is certainly a really strong value play right now, I still like Jokic better overall, especially with there being value at other positions. So I'd actually say center is the position I like to spend up at the most right now. And then for pay down, it would probably be point guard, just because, we have TJ McConnell in the mix, Malachi Flynn as a potential option. And then, Jalen Harris is point guard eligible on FanDuel in the event where Boucher gets ruled out, and we could expect extra minutes to go there in a shortened rotation. So I'm going to say spend down at point guard right now, spend up at center. I don't know if that answers your question or not, Suave, but I did what I could by answering the question of what position should you fade. All right, we had another super chat here and this is one, I'm not exactly sure how to answer this one either, but Heart of Packs. Hey, Greg and Eric, can you give me a few prize pick props that you guys love for tonight? Are you familiar with prize picks?
I'm not familiar with prize picks.
Neither am I. So
I can give you prize picks if you're just asking. So if you go to Odd Shopper, you can go to check out the NBA props. You can sort it all. There's an NBA props tool. I just did a tutorial video for it. If you want to check that out, that's on the Awesemo website. You can go over and check the NBA props tool under the NBA tab, or go to Odd Shopper. If you group it by X ROI, so expected ROI for the props, right now we've got some really, really good ones on the board. One of them that I liked earlier this morning that ended up getting out a little bit later because I sent it to the wrong person in our Slack chat, the wrong video. And I believe your prop hit too. We're 3-0 on the prop bets this week. So try to go 4-0. I like the under of Julius Randle, 27.5. That's actually moved to 26.5, but I still think it's a good under. You got Alec Burks. You've got Derrick Rose, who I thought was going to play the entire time in a game that still the Knicks have the capability to move up to the 4 seed. They're right now guaranteed to be a top 6 now. So I guess some of the pressure's off there, but not going to have to ride Julius Randle as hard here. So I'm going to be a little bit lighter on him in DFS and in the prop market.
All right. And then also we have some people bringing up the news on Jokic. Jokic is probable on the injury report. Like I said, maybe probable is a little more of a concern for me this year than in other parts of the season. But as of now, I'm expecting Jokic to play full minutes, and it's not a concern for me. If something changes with his status, then maybe I'll have to adjust. But for now, I'm not concerned. But he has toe injuries listed as probable. They have ruled out, like I said, Michael Porter Jr. earlier in the day. Obviously, Jamal Murray's out for the season. Will Barton's out right now. So there's a whole bunch of usage available for Jokic right now. But does the injury designation change your opinion of him at all?
A little bit. I think it's just the point in this season that we're at that really kind of affects me. Like, they're pretty locked in where they're at. Like there's not a whole lot of fluctuation that's going to happen for the Nuggets at this point in time. I don't know. Like it's hard to really say, oh, they should actually be losing games to get better matchups. You never really know how that fits together. That can backfire really quickly. All I know is that they don't have to worry about a play-in tournament whatsoever. They don't necessarily have to worry about going and getting a 1 seed. So I feel pretty safe in saying that Nikola Jokic is not going to play 36 minutes tonight, 37 minutes. Like I don't see that in the cards, but could still definitely play low 30s minutes. And that can be a smash for him. We've seen, I mean, he put up 63 on New York in 29 minutes the other night. The slowest pace matchup you could possibly ask for, best defensive rating on the board. So I think there's always merit to going over the field on Nikola Jokic.
All right. So here's why I think that there's still reason for them to go all out. They are right now the 4 seed in the West. They're still in play for the 3 seed though. They're only a game behind the Los Angeles Clippers. So there's still something for the Nuggets to play for. I know the seeding is a little wonky in the West right now in terms of like, who even knows if it's more beneficial to be the 1 or the 2 seed, because you can end up getting stuck playing the Lakers in the first round or something like that, depending on how everything breaks. But I still think this is a game where the Nuggets are going to be going out and trying to win. And just given all the players that are out, I do expect this is still a spot where Jokic plays full minutes, but there's a little bit of variance, obviously, at this point of the season. But as of now, that's how I projected. That's what I'm expecting. And I have Jokic projected for more fantasy points than anybody on the slate. So I'll ask you this question then, Eric. If I was just tell you pick any player on the slate, salary doesn't matter, who do you think scores the most raw fantasy points today?
Domantas Sabonis.
Okay.
I think that's the quick answer. I think he's kind of doing everything for this team. No Brogdon, no Levert. It's got to be Sabonis for me. He's my highest owned spend up.
Yeah, it is Jokic for me, but certainly if I was to decrease Jokic's minutes a little bit, assuming that there is a potential issue with the toe, I have Sabonis and Giannis really close as the next best option. So yeah, if I was to lower Jokic's minutes, that would definitely change some stuff for me, and then I would probably go towards Sabonis as well. Super chat here from Devontae Moore. Would Campazzo be a good pivot off of McConnell on FanDuel? So for me, I already have Campazzo exposure. I think both of them are good plays, but I strongly prefer TJ McConnell for this slate. The only way that I would say Campazzo is if we get a starting lineup and McConnell isn't starting. As of now, McConnell's the guy for me. Eric, Campazzo or McConnell?
Yeah, you're hopefully just asking this isn't like, is this a tournament pivot that I can make? Yes, you can absolutely make it. Campazzo, also a guy with crazy stocks upside. So on FanDuel specifically, if he gets eight, like, I don't know, if he finds a way to 6-8 stocks, it sounds so ridiculous to say that out loud, but that's a realistic thing on FanDuel for him and McConnell. And McConnell just gets none. You could be finding some heavy leverage on it. So sure, fire it up. But that's not something you should be doing. If you're making 150 lineups, you'd be kind of crazy, I think, to be flip-flopping the exposure and playing 50% Campazzo and 6% McConnell.
Yeah, we have, by the way, right now, some ownership projections here. And guys, you haven't done it already, like the video, also subscribe to our YouTube channel. Not only, like I said, Eric and I are going to be here up to lock. We're also sticking around for 30 minutes after lock, going to be talking about our sponsor, Jock Market. And then coming up later in the day, we've got Pete the Heat Rogers and Jason Floyd talking about the UFC card this week. We've got Charles Oliveira fighting against Michael Chandler. So that is something else to watch. So definitely subscribe to the YouTube channel so you know when that starts. But some ownership for today. TJ McConnell, the most rostered player on the slate today, 52% on FanDuel, 50% on Draftkings. I'm currently overweight to the number. I'm not exactly sure where I'm going to finalize with that number, just because right now McConnell is by far to me the top value play at least, but that could change depending on what happens with the Raptors situation. But McConnell, 50%. Are you over or under that number right now, Eric?
I'm over that number on Draftkings.
All right. There we go. Both of us eating the chalk right there.
Also, we got Derrick Rose out, which really is kind of a weird thing. I don't think it affects too much for me. Definitely makes me not like my prop nearly as much as what I liked it, I don't know, the entire day until this point in time. But Derrick Rose out, definitely a little bit of a boost for Julius Randle. But then getting guys like so quickly, along with that news, we had Reggie Bullock, Emmanuel Quickley, and Alec Burks all ruled in. So that becomes kind of a clutter. It's not a for sure 1-for-1 because Derrick Rose is going to be a higher usage option there. I'm assuming, Burks has got to be the guy they slide back into that. Does he start there? I'm not sure.
Well, he's been out for a little while, so it depends what kind of, restriction he's going to have. But I'm just going to pull up the Knicks right now and look at the numbers this year with Derrick Rose off the court and see what we could really look at here in terms of what kind of a usage change would I be expecting for here. So Derrick Rose is one of the higher usage players on the Knicks. So that does mean that there's other usage to allocate around, except, depending who the Knicks play off the bench, they also have, a handful of other guards. You mentioned Alec Burks. He could be a high usage guy quickly when he's on the court. He could certainly be a high usage guy. So we have Julius Randle this year. Doesn't actually really make much of a difference now that I'm looking at the numbers, to be honest. Julius Randle for the season, his usage actually goes down by 1% when Derrick Rose is off the court. The only guy whose usage significantly goes up this year with Rose off the court is Alec Burks. His usage goes up to 23.7%, but we're not rostering Alec Burks anyway. So, Randle 28% usage rate with Derrick Rose off the court. This isn't going to actually change anything for me.
Yeah, I don't think so. I said I didn't think it was going to change a ton other than maybe a boost to Julius Randle. Like, you got to think in logically. Part of it is Emmanuel Quickly. His usage rate is still 26% with Rose off the floor. I mean, he was actually sitting right around the exact same either way. So getting him back in the fray for even 16 minutes, 18 minutes, I'm not sure how hard he'll get pushed. He's played more at times, he's played less at times, but putting him in, he's not a play for me by any means today, but definitely going to affect Randle when they're on the floor together a little bit, because he definitely likes to shoot the basketball.
So we got a follow-up super chat from our guy Suave. He had asked the question about what position could he fade earlier. Have to say I'm still not all that certain with the follow-up here. Super chat, he said, so remember the original super chat, what position can I fade on FanDuel? We were not really sure what to make of that question. The follow-up is, for example, if I don't want Young, can I play TJ in another value?
Yeah. I have no clue. I want to be helpful. I really, I love to be helpful. If you can send one more super chat, I guarantee the third time I will answer it no matter what it says. I will read the teleprompter. I will say whatever it says, but I still don't understand what that means.
All right. So I'm just going to answer this literally as it is. If I don't want to play Young, can I play TJ in another value? Yes. You don't have to play Trae Young today, and TJ McConnell is one. I love TJ McConnell today. Play TJ McConnell. You could do that.
Every single Hawk in.
All right. So let's hit that now. The Hawks, Trae Young, Clint Capella, Bogdan Bogdanovic, and Danilo Gallinari are all available tonight. Easy enough. I had them all in. I'm not actually gonna have to change anything for this. So
how nice for you.
Well, did you take individual? Because it just didn't make any sense to what was I going to do? Rule 2 of them in and 1 of them out? That would have been.
No, I took all 4 out. I didn't think they were playing. I thought it was. I think not Laffy. I thought Adam made a pretty good point on the last show where it felt like in baseball when somebody clinches the division, they go out and get trashed, and then it's a bunch of nobodies, or the AAA team basically gets called up, and the lineup looks super wonky the next day. I thought that was kind of what we were walking into with Atlanta today, but suppose not. Just kidding.
Well, for my personal assumption, if somebody's probable, I just assume they're playing. I don't care if somebody's a game time decision. If somebody's a game time decision, they're probable, I assume they're playing. If somebody's a game time decision and they're doubtful, I assume they're out. So I thought there was real risk in Clint Capella and Bogdanovic not playing, but Trae Young was listed as probable. So I was hopeful that Trae Young was going to end up playing and those other guys would sit, because then that would have made Trae Young, a really, really strong play individually. But now it just looks like Trae Young is just a pay up option who I'm going to get to probably 10 to 15% of the time. And I'm not going to roster anybody else on the Hawks.
Yeah, it's another bust, another write-off for me. So that's fine.
Easy enough.
Whatever. Nate McMillan came out before this game and basically said that they were all going to be game time decisions. And so if he hadn't said that, I wouldn't have cared whatsoever, but it just seemed like a strange thing to say. I don't know, an hour and a half before tip.
All right. So somebody said that he's wondering what the best position is to pay down for, but that is kind of that was what I assumed to answer the first time.
And so he had said point guard, and that was kind of the spot to be going to. McConnell is down there. Malachi Flynn, we're still waiting on Boucher. And again, I don't mean to jump the gun on you in any of these spots. I just, as soon as it comes out and I see it, I'm just going to fire it up for you if we're if we're talking about something, especially this Boucher news. Like that is gigantic in terms of what I'm going to be doing with my lineups at this point. But yeah, TJ McConnell, if you go over to the boom bust tool, coming in the optimal over 50% of the time, it wouldn't matter what his ownership is above 50% at that point. He's a phenomenal play, and there's not a whole lot you can say against it. So I think paying down at point guard, definitely a good answer from you.
All right. Have you run any lineups? Do you think you're going to be getting to Trae Young, or still uncertain?
I'm going to get to him on FanDuel a little bit. It seemed to always that price always is a little bit low, 8,600. I'm still going to get to around, I'm only playing a handful of lineups over there, so nothing meaningful, but I guarantee I'll have a share or two.
All right. So here's a overarching strategy question. We still have 26 minutes to lock, still waiting on some news. We know we have Pacers value, but we assume there's going to be value later in the night as well. So TJ McConnell, we both like him a lot. I don't think that's going to change. But then there's some ancillary pieces for the Pacers right now, like Doug McDermott. I think he is value right now, but I think there's a good chance that better value is going to open up. So what are you going to do with some of these Pacers value guys with the understanding that they look like good values now, but better values could open up later?
I mean, I find it hard to believe that you're going to get like better values than the TJ McConnell. I think Keelan Martin is an interesting, fascinating question to be asking over on DraftKings specifically. Coming in now as the highest owned small forward, and Justin Holiday, I think appropriately 4,100 as well, getting some, and we just got that starting lineup, which is awfully helpful that we're talking about them. But that trio of Indiana guys at small forward, because the rest of the position, like Terrence Davis, you can play at shooting guard. Kyle Anderson, I'm not that enamored with today. Jimmy Butler could end up being, he's questionable. He's a game time decision, which I also should have led with the fact that Bam would become probably my second highest or maybe highest owned spend up if we get that news that Jimmy Butler is going to be out up against Philly with no Embiid here, possibly. Like I feel pretty comfortable in saying that as well. But looking at the position of small forward, like this Indiana value, it's hard for it to like really look terrible later on compared to other places. It just becomes, the regular question that we have is like, do you want to have the roster spots later to fill in with the other value? How are they going to compare? And like, I think you should still be okay getting to some of these Toronto Raptors. They shouldn't be write-offs as is. Like Gary Trent is still going to be decent enough over on FanDuel. Like DraftKings not looking substantial by any means, but like all of those cheapies over there for Toronto, like that's still like, they're not at prices where they're going to be like that far off of some of these guys. The only issue you have is that like Keelan Martin, 3,200 just gives you a solidified build like right from the get-go. And then you can't really adjust to like what Yuta Watanabe's more expensive. Like all these other guys for Toronto are a little bit more expensive. And then you have the center position who I talked about with Gillespie. Like, I don't think it's going to affect what I'm doing as much as what I thought it would.
All right. We have a starting lineup for the Pacers. Have you seen it? If not, I'll just read it to you and you can react.
Yeah, I just saw it.
Okay. So Pacers starting lineup, TJ McConnell, Justin Holiday, Doug McDermott, O'Shea Brissett, Domantas Sabonis. So you were just talking about how much you like Keelan Martin. With news that he is not starting, is that going to change your outlook on him at all?
Not really. He's still going to be playing minutes. Actually, I think it probably helps him a little bit. He hasn't started all season. He hasn't had a single start whatsoever, but the usage was up to 30.8%, 22%. He's kind of coming in second unit, chucking the ball, doing the regular things that he does. On FanDuel, you don't need to go crazy with it. That small forward position, you don't necessarily need to go to the basement for 3,500. I think that's pretty much expressed, but I still am keeping him at the exact same minutes. I'm not making any changes to him and wasn't really expecting him to start as is.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm really unsure about how many minutes he's going to play. So that game against the Cavs, it was a game against the Cavs, and it was a weaker opponent, so we got 25 minutes. He only played 18 minutes last game. Obviously, the big difference here is that there is no Karis LeVert. Karis LeVert's been playing about 40 minutes a game. We have to allocate that around. Given what the starting lineup is, I think we could safely say, that a bunch of those minutes are going to be going towards Doug McDermott and O'Shea Brissett. Now, we've seen Brissett this year play upwards of 40 minutes. So I think we could see some bigger lineups, and Brissett probably plays, like 35, 36 minutes. Doug McDermott, I think, probably could play 35, 36 minutes. So right there, that's about half of LeVert's minutes that we're allocating. And then beyond that, I think Cassius Stanley could play a bigger role in the rotation. So Keelan Martin's certainly viable, but I don't know that I'm going to be absolutely just loading him into my lineups right now, because I still do want to have the flexibility to swap in some of those Raptors guys. And I'm not sure that Keelan Martin is going to play like 26, 28 minutes.
So you feel better about playing 5,100 O'Shea Brissett in the starting lineup and having that at 5,100 eating up a roster spot? Like, for me, it just really comes down to the fact that Keelan Martin is super cheap. And that definitely helps like mitigate some of the risk that I have with the minutes. And so for me, it just came down to like going over the field there. It's probably easier to make some of the salaries work to get to Raptors by having a cheap guy on the front end, backloading my lineups a little bit, specifically over on DraftKings. I'm not playing enough on FanDuel today. And part of that is like some of the late swappability. It's more difficult. It's not a 1-for-1 at the position on DraftKings because of a utility and because of the guard and forward spots. You can kind of make everything work a little bit easier when you're making a bunch of lineups and when we're doing a show. But like Keelan Martin, 3,200, I just think because of the price tag, I don't feel as uncomfortable. And Justin Holiday, we know the propensity has to go in and just be super low usage. Played actually fantastic the last two, but still doesn't have like must-have fantasy performances in those two games. I feel better about Keelan Martin just having an upside at 3,200, at least can go out and chuck in the second unit. And so that takes a little bit of the risk for me away. That's why I'm going there.
Yeah, so to be clear, it's not that I prefer other Pacers more than him for cheap. I just prefer leaving my lineup spots open where I don't have a whole bunch of them locked in the first game of the slate. Where, by the way, also, given what we have... That's
normally what I do, but I for whatever reason, it doesn't feel like there's that big of an edge to doing it today because the ownership, like... I just don't know how that's going to work out. And like, as I said, Toronto could be good, like decent enough plays already as is. They're super plays if you get the Boucher news that he's out. But like, if Boucher's in, that's the guy that I want. And right now I'm prioritizing him. And having 6,800 of salary in a roster spot there, I should be able to naturally be able to spread that around a little bit easier if he ends up getting ruled out.
All right, so let's go over. Here are the players we're still waiting on news for that could potentially open up value. Jimmy Butler is questionable. Joel Embiid is questionable. Jonas Valanciunas is questionable. They're playing the Kings also. So Valanciunas being out, that would open up potential some backcourt value. Front court value. Chris Boucher questionable. And DeAndre Ayton questionable. Mo Bamba questionable. So, Ayton being out would open up a ton of value too. If we find out, I don't even know what they would do in the starting lineup if Ayton's out. Maybe they go Frank Kaminsky. Kaminsky's been so terrible this year, at least from a real life perspective. But yeah, what if Kaminsky ends up starting? Like, then he becomes a really strong play.
Started, I think, last time that we got Ayton out. I believe it was, let me find it here. We got a start from him on the 19th of April. Did we get a start from Kaminsky? It was a long time ago. It was on March 13th. So yeah, it could be one or the other, but because they're close enough in salary, 3,500. And then Sarge, 3,500. They're both 3,500 on FanDuel, so that's not much of a concern. And on DraftKings, you've got Kaminsky at 3,200 and Sarge at 3K. So that's not a concern either.
Yeah. But my overarching point is that I just want to have the flexibility to be able to get to some of these guys because I think there are going to be a lot of good value plays that open up and the field might go pretty heavily to Keelan Martin right out of the gate. So let me see if we have an ownership, latest one anyway, because we had Keelan Martin 26% owned on DraftKings. At least in the last ownership run, and just refreshing to see if we have a latest one. We do. He is 24% now on DraftKings. On FanDuel, Keelan Martin is only 20%. So how much Martin are you planning to get to? Are you going to be significantly overweight to that number or a little bit or about even?
I'm significantly over on DraftKings. And here's the logic of it. This is really what I'm doing from a tournament perspective. So I'm way over on McConnell and I'm going to be over on Martin and I'm going to be over on Sabonis. So the easy path for me is to be lighter on Justin Holiday and Doug McDermott at the same position where it's $900. If Justin Holiday and McDermott beat him straight up, no, obviously would not surprise me whatsoever, but I could end up with $900 in savings off Holiday and I could end up in $1,300 in savings off of McDermott. So I'm basically playing like a non-existent amount of those two, like a significantly less amount because I don't want to be playing like 4 or 5 Pacers in a bunch of my lineups. I do want to have some flexibility there. I'm making it a cap of 3 still, but Keelan Martin's the cheapest out of all of them, fills that same small forward position, and allows for me to have a little bit more money to spread around later as we start to get some of this news to be able to get to as many pieces I really want to. There's plenty of guys that I can get to. There's spend ups even in the late hammer. Like if I got stuck with Lillard, McCollum, if I got stuck with Booker or, Chris Paul, if I had to get stuck with those guys in the late night hammer and you got 8 and out, like I would not be like, I wouldn't be like bummed out with it whatsoever if I had to like spread out a bunch of my salary that way. But I'm right now just front loading Chris Boucher into all my lineups. That's kind of the decision I've made here with 15 minutes to go. We don't have that yet. At this point in time, I think he's going to come in significantly under-owned to what he should be, should he get ruled in. And then by playing a cheap guy like Martin, I can spread a bunch more salary around later as the day goes on. So that's my thinking. And I totally understand where you're coming from, because generally that's all I preach, is just having the roster flexibility to react to news that nobody else can react to. But because that's just kind of the way that I'm setting it up, to be able to react to stuff a little bit differently.
All right. We do have a question here from Bars in our premium Slack chat. He's asking, how do you feel about Burks as a pivot off of Martin? No. I'm not as high on Martin as Eric is. So I have Martin in my player pool. I just have him 10% right now. Like, if I knew that none of these other value plays were going to open up, then yeah, I'd have a lot more Keelan Martin. That's just something I'm not totally confident in. So I have him 10%. I'm trying to leave my lineup flexibility open now, but Alec Burks, that's not a viable play for this slate. And then Yowdingly in our premium Slack chat, he's asking, FanDuel power forward, if there's no Boucher, who would be the priorities amongst these names? Giannis, Sabonis, Gillespie, and Aaron Gordon.
I mean, Gillespie would be, I think, just hearing that. Let me find that super chat.
No, it's not a super chat. It's in our premium Slack. It's he was just asking FanDuel power forward, if Boucher's out, he's saying rank Giannis, Sabonis, Gillespie, and Gordon. I mean, it's hard to just kind of rank these guys off because they're in way different price ranges. So how about this? Favorite pay-up option between Sabonis and Giannis?
Sabonis.
Okay, I agree with that. And then Gillespie or Gordon, I assume that's Aaron Gordon. If Boucher is out, then that is Gillespie. I liked Aaron Gordon a little earlier in the day as a contrarian GPP play when Michael Porter Jr. was first ruled out, but so much value's opened up now that I'm finding it a little hard to get to him. But yeah, I do think that he's somebody. I'm 5% Aaron Gordon right now, but he's somebody who I'm definitely going to be kicking myself over if he has a big game.
I think I asked you this last week. It feels like deja vu, but how much Paul Millsap are you getting on DraftKings right now? I think I asked you that exact question a week ago today, which feels equally as awful as what it did before.
I don't know if it was. There was a slate recently where the Nuggets had ruled a bunch of guys out, and then Millsap wasn't starting. So I bet a bunch of his under props on Sportsbook, going like, "Oh, he's going to be limited today. He's not going to play very many minutes." And he ended up not playing any minutes, and just all the tickets get voided then because he never stepped on the court. Right. But I was like, I feel like I had a good read on that situation, and then there's just nothing to show for it. All gets voided. But Paul Millsap right now. I do not have Paul Millsap in my player pool right now.
Okay. I have 10% on DK, and that still felt high. He's coming in higher owned than that. I just was curious of that.
Yeah. My preference in that front court right now is actually JaMychal Green.
Yep.
I think he's going to start and play the bulk of the minutes.
Equally as awful. Yeah. It feels awesome. I love this slate. Here we go. But yeah, Joel Embiid got ruled in. Wanted to know that.
Cool.
Yep.
Any interest in playing Embiid?
Yes, I do. I do have some interest in having a little bit. Let's see the price tag here. I think on DraftKings where you're able to play two, I'm still hitching my wagon, I think, to mostly right now on FanDuel. Because again, part of it is I'm just kind of like on an emotional free roll. Just play 20 lineups over on FanDuel, not have to think about it anymore. I'm just going to throw a bunch of Chris Boucher over there and not think twice about it. Over on DraftKings where I have more going on, I think I'll definitely get to some Embiid where I can play two centers. That ownership will not be where it should be at this point in time. And we still are going to be waiting on Jimmy Butler. And in the interest of having money to move around, like if up my exposure to Joel Embiid here, that game doesn't start until 4:30 out here. So 7:30 East Coast. Feel good about having a little bit more, having another guy that is a spend up that I have some salary allocated to, and I can kind of mix and match as we go along.
All right. We had some other super chats here. Charles is asking, hey guys, quick question for the Charlotte Hornets, Los Angeles Clippers showdown tonight. Better captain, Terry, Ball, Washington, George, or Leonard, DK small field single entry. Amongst those guys, I have, let me look really quick.
I took down the $3 yesterday on Showdown, which was fun.
Oh, look at you.
I know. Look at me. Kelly O,
just
Kelly O in the captain.
Of course,
what a stud. What a studly muffin.
You and your chalk.
I know, me and my chalk. I took it out, so I had a bunch in the 15 or whatever, and I had some stuff come up here at home where I had to attend to we're having like construction around our apartment, whatever else. And so I wasn't able to be at my phone rated up to lock. And so I took took it all out of the $15 stuff, and it would have been like a 4K hit. So that was my bad beat yesterday, but nobody gives a crap about that. So DK Showdown, which one is that? Charlotte LAC?
Yeah, Paul George for me.
I mean, Paul George going to be, yeah, it's going to be Paul George for me as well. If you had to go to any Hornet, if you're looking for a Hornet, Terry Rozier.
All right. A bunch of super chats here piling up. Justin Alberto, he's asking favorite 34K and under player on DK as a tourney shot. I assume that answer for you is Keelan Martin, correct?
Yes.
This is a tough one for me to answer because it's somebody. The answer is somebody who I'm not playing yet. You know what I mean? It's going to be. Here's the answer. It's going to be late. It's going to be a late swap. It's going to be whoever gets ruled out with an injury. So if we find out, for instance, that I'm going to give a couple of scenarios. If Chris Boucher is ruled out, then it is going to be. Let me look at all the pricing. If it's Boucher out, then it's. Gillespie is actually 3,600, so it wouldn't be him. But under 3,400, let's see, what is Frank Kaminsky?
He's 32, I believe, on DK.
Okay,
so and then Sarge is 3K, or it's the other way around. It's one of the two.
So if Ayton is ruled out, then it's whoever starts between Sarge and Kaminsky. Last game of the day, I assume that would have much less ownership than it should. So that is going to be my answer, and it's going to depend on some of the injury news. I know that's annoying, but hey, we don't have a lot of the news yet. From Crazy Max here, Brandon Clark is also cheap on DK. Thinking of playing him instead of Metu. Your thoughts? If Valanciunas is out, fine. Although Clark was a really terrible play that worked out last game. Like that was a play that had no business working. Brandon Clark played, 19 minutes in that game?
Yep. It was very, very tilting. He had 19 minutes. Yeah. 25.6% usage for a nice 34.25 spot at like 33% ownership.
Yeah, he was an absolute garbage play that worked. I hate when that gets. It was whatever. I'm not even. We've only got a few minutes to lock. I'm not gonna harp on it too much. But yeah, he only played 19 minutes last game, even with Valanciunas out. So no, Metu is a stronger option for me than Brandon Clark, and that's regardless if Valanciunas plays. If Valanciunas plays, easily Metu. If Valanciunas is out, still Metu for me. Rio G, appreciate all the work from you guys late in the NBA season. It's insane. Yes, it is. Favorite shooting guards / small forwards for Fanduel Cash. So Fanduel, who is your overall favorite shooting guard option? Who is your favorite overall small forward option?
Let me click on over there. I was finishing up some DK stuff. So Devin Booker was top 7,500 over there. That's just a misprice. And then Gary Trent. Those are my 1-2 there. Paul George third.
And so for shooting guard, I'd say Devin Booker and Paul George. For small forward, that is O'Shea Brissett for me.
Love it. Yeah, he's a much better play over on FanDuel 5,100. That's much more manageable. And in the way the salaries work out, where you're playing two small forwards, really like him there. I also like getting to more Jimmy Butler. I don't think Jimmy Butler is going to get to the ownership that we have him at if he ends up ruled in. And we'll have enough roster spots where I think you can still make some pivots work over on FanDuel. So don't write him off either.
All right. Mo Bamba will not play. So let's get that. But first, let's fire through these super chats because I want to make sure we answer these in a timely fashion before lock. From Darren Unger, Stanley Johnson, or Justin Holiday. That is Justin Holiday for me.
Same.
All right. Suave, he's followed up again. He's saying, what is the best position to pay down for on FanDuel other than point guard? That was what the initial question was.
Small forward. O'Shea Brissett, Justin Holiday. If you want to play Martin over there, don't play Martin on small. Like I'm playing Martin is a DraftKings specific play for me tournaments.
All right. And are we all caught up on super chats right now? Yes. All right. So let's hit on the Mo Bamba news with news now that Bamba officially out with an illness. What do you make of the Orlando Magic front court?
I still think it's a stay away. I'm not like enamored with it. I think there's a lot better center plays that we could go to up and down the salary spectrum. I don't think Wendell Carter coming back from injury as they're kind of like winding down their season against the Hawks, and you got Clint Capella in and all of these things. I think Karl-Anthony gets a little bit of a bump He's 5K on FanDuel, but there's so many people that you can be looking at elsewhere. I don't have a ton of interest in anybody. If there was anybody that you were going to take a flyer as a result, like I just think they have to play some smaller lineups now without Wendell there. Ignas Brazdeikis is 3,500 over on FanDuel. That's a shot I might take a couple of them on, just because, again, he's at the flat min. But that's really the only purpose that I have for that. But as far as Wendell Carter Jr. goes, I'm still probably not going to get to him.
All right. I'm running a final run of my lineups here with the news that this is going to change absolutely nothing for me, even though I thought originally that maybe I would get to Wendell Carter Jr., but to your point, there's just better plays. And it's not like he's that cheap, right? If Wendell Carter Jr. was, like 5,000 or 48 or something like that, then yeah, I'd be getting to him. I'd project for a little over 30 fantasy points. So, I mean, like points per dollar, he's fine, but fine isn't good enough on a slate like this.
No, it sure is not.
All right, let's see. Are there any more super chats? Did you actually get your lineups in on time today?
Well, they're not even in. I got 6 minutes. Come on now. That's forever.
Not this is
like high school where you just kind of like procrastinating the report and you're like, I got time. And then all of a sudden it's like morning of and you're just crap shooting, whatever. Those were the days. Just giving myself a heart attack on the daily. That was good times.
You look like somebody took their school like very, very seriously.
I did.
That does not surprise me in the least. There's not much that I don't take seriously. Like I like to have fun. I feel like I'm a goofy individual, but for the most part, I like to do my work. I like to handle my side of the street. All right. Tweet that the news god just posted in our premium Slack chat. Jonas Valanciunas felt better today with his back, and his status will be determined after a pregame workout. So there we go. That is a news update. That's really a non-news update. A guy who's a game time decision, still a game time decision, basically. All right. So
I love NBA.
I am uploading my this is so dumb. I'm updating my lineups right now, and I realize I'm gonna have almost none of these guys in my lineup later.
Like, that's not true. You have TJ McConnell. You have Justin Holiday. You have Doug McDermott. You have all. Stop it. Don't say stuff like that. Don't lie to the people.
So I have. I'm gonna have some exposure to Justin Holiday and Doug McDermott, and obviously Sabonis. So the guys who are starting now, I'm gonna have. But these other guys that I have in my lineup, I have no clue whether they're gonna end up being in or not.
It's very true. I'm just messing with you, obviously.
Is there anything that you see or anybody you're getting to that surprises you in the lineups that you're creating right now?
I'm getting to more Randall than I was anticipating this entire day, especially considering I have, $110 riding on the fact that I don't want him to score 27 real points. So, 28 real points. But now that line's moved to 26.5. So everybody else, if they jump in with me, I really don't want Julius Randle to score 27. But I hope he passes around and gets a bunch of assists and rebounds. That's kind of what I'm banking on. But definitely becomes a better play with Derrick Rose off for like just slightly. And I know it doesn't necessarily show up, but I'm getting a little bit more. I originally said that I wasn't going to have any. I have 10%, so I'm still half the field, but I just have to be honest and throw that out there because I'd feel really bad if he ended up in the lineup on DraftKings and I had him in it, especially after doing a prop video for it.
Would you feel that bad if you won, though?
Okay, maybe I wouldn't feel that. Yeah, that's in hindsight. Yeah, that's probably true. It's money.
All right, so I have my final version of lineups being uploaded to DraftKings right now. So I know you were high on Keelan Martin. That wasn't going to change. But ultimately, how much exposure did you end up getting to Doug McDermott and Justin Holiday?
I'm way under the field. Way under the field.
O'Shea
Brissett, I do have a little bit. So okay. O'Shea Brissett, I have. So I'm riding a little bit of the O'Shea Brissett chalk. I got a little bit even on DraftKings, 5,600. Not a lot, but his ownership's about appropriate. I would say over there, I'm getting to about the field. I think we've seen enough upside games from him. Just sitting underneath a fantasy point per minute, 0.93 fantasy points per minute on the year now. Having Sabonis out there is very, very different, but still some room on that tag, I think.
All right, we do have one more super chat here to get to from our guy, Noah DeCumis. He's asking for a FanDuel GPP, slow-mo or Brissett. That is Brissett for me.
Brissett by a lot. I hate slow-mo.
You hate him? You have a
I had an unhealthy amount of him the other day, and I've never, there's guys that you just don't like rostering. Like, your numbers tell you to do it, and you do it because the numbers in the long run, like the data that we have here at Awesemo, is just so elite. And so I just trust it, and I roll with it. And a lot of times that works out phenomenally well for me. Has never worked out for Kyle Anderson for whatever reason. I'm always on the wrong side of it.
By the way, it has been so hard to look into my camera for this show. It's just so much of looking at the chat and trying to stay updated and everything, looking down, looking at the Slack chat, and then also updating my lineups at the same time. This is probably the least I've ever looked at my actual camera while doing a show. There's no time to look into the camera. I'm doing it right now, but or else I've got lineups that I'm updating here. I'm looking through this right now to see what surprises me. I'm using Chris Boucher as a placeholder a ton right now. He's in the majority of my lineups. Obviously, no clue what that's going to look like later on in the day. But right now, we have a minute until lock. If you haven't updated your lineups yet, I haven't put them in, go ahead and do that. But other thing to note here, don't sign off right at 7 o'clock, because Eric and I are sticking around for the next 30 minutes. We're going to be talking about Jock Mark. We're going to be talking about some of the IPO pricing. We're going to be placing bids on players. So that's always fun. And then, as always, also, there's going to be all kinds of late news. There's going to be guys scratched, and we're going to have to be updating our lineups for that. So even if you're not sure if you're going to be playing on Jock Market, stick around anyway. And also be sure to like the video, because it's good for our egos, right? We don't want to be sitting here and say nobody liked us.
I didn't shave my eyebrow for nothing, everybody.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. Looking pretty cool now.
Yeah. Vanilla ice baby. Let's rock.
And there we are. We are now at lock. So we are now at the Jock Market portion of the show. Guys. Oh, is it playing? I don't know why. I don't know why the sound effect. Have you noticed that lately? A lot of the sound effects,
we switched softwares, and we have new things happening. And Jordan moved to California, and he's lazier than he used to be. He has a general malaise about him now. He lives by the pier. He hangs out with celebrities. He does all the cool things. Yeah, I don't know why he's Stewie from Family Guy, but he is.
He's about to put on I think the Cali 25, just him lazing around, eating just California pizza.
Avocado.
No, California Pizza Kitchen. I assume that's what they're
CPK
in California.
CPK. I've had it like twice. It's actually okay, but yeah, not a California thing for me.
Yeah. So the other thing too with the sound effects is it like it plays for like a half second, then it stops, then it picks back up afterwards. So I don't know if that's just the software or what it is in my ears, but I'm always confused when the sound effects start. I never know when I'm supposed to start or stop talking, because does that happen in your ears also with the sound effects being goofy?
It's muffled, and then it's like, oh, did it come in or not? The other day, I believe that I put Jordan on blast, and I just thought he didn't play the sound effect. Went back, and it sounded perfect, and he crushed it, and I'm the worst. That's what we learned.
All right, guys. Now here we get to the fun. Today's show is sponsored by Jock Market. What is Jock Market? Just a little bit different way to play DFS. There's no kind of salary restrictions. It's a stock market, but with DFS players. And we're going to be bidding on individual players at an IPO price. And then depending on how well they finish at the end of the slate, relative to the other guys that are on the Jock Market, that's ultimately what we return on the IPO that we have invested in them, assuming we win the bid. Also, you download the Jock Market app for free in the App Store. If you want to make a deposit, go use the promo code Awesemo20. That will get you a $20 bonus on your first deposit. And then also, if you don't know how much to bid on players, because let's be real, Eric and I, we wouldn't know how much to bid on players if it wasn't for like Eric, what do we know? We don't know.
I'm a chalk donkey.
Yeah, we don't know nothing. There's no chalk there. Eric doesn't know who he likes when there's no chalk. Go to Awesemo.com. We do have free IPO projections up on the site, and that is what I'm pulling up right now. And that's a good way just to get an idea of, hey, this is that based on our projections, these are the fair IPO prices that we're looking to bid on players. So I'm pulling that up right now. So Eric, as this pulls up, have you looked at it yet, or are you going in blind so I could ask you questions and have you guess?
I can go in blind. I just pulled up the app and I was going through because I was updating. Jimmy Butler got ruled in for all that wanted to know things such as that. Yeah, Jimmy Butler's in, and like the Hawks starting lineup is exactly what we thought it would be. Just the regulars. So Young, Bogdanovich, Hill, Collins, Capella. So we don't have to change anything.
Jonas Valanciunas is in. Jimmy Butler is in. So no real value opening up in the Memphis front court. And with Jimmy Butler, there are no additional value opening up on Miami. But one thing, the question I wanted to ask you about Jock Market. Which player do you think projects as having the highest fair IPO price tonight?
I mean, is it going to? I mean, Sabonis is my answer. I'm gonna go. Think about the scoring. Going to be Nikola Jokic.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing is, don't forget that it's since the IPO period closed at 7:30, the guys who are in that 7 o'clock game aren't on it.
Right.
So that takes Jokic, that takes Sabonis and Giannis out of the mix. So it kind of makes Jokic the obvious one. I do wonder if Jokic, since he's listed as a game time decision, because he is on the Jock Market app. He's a game time decision, but he's probable to play. Like I said earlier, if somebody's probable but a game time decision, I assume they're playing. If somebody's doubtful in a game time decision, I assume they are out. Do you think this is going to make Jokic go cheaper than he otherwise would have?
Oh, totally. I think it's probably going to happen that way. We've seen some really aggressive takes on some of the top end guys, and I think that that's an all right way to go because it pays out $25 to the top end. If you're going to make some aggressive stands, really go to that top end and try to identify the guys who have the most upside. And if people are kind of scared off of Jokic, maybe that's the guy that you go and invest on Jock Market and add it to your DFS portfolio that way. I think it's definitely a better bet than going to like Karl-Anthony Towns, I think is a much riskier out. Like those minutes have to be trending down for some of them. Like they've been in some blowouts of late. The Timberwolves have unfortunately been playing good at like the wrong time. You know, like maybe you do that at the beginning of a season. That would be awesome. But Karl-Anthony Towns, I think I definitely prefer Jokic. I'll see what those numbers end up being, but fair IPO price still in double digits for both of them. Not crazy far off, but like Nikola Jokic, definitely the priority of the two. And so if they're going around the same, that's an easy chance to capitalize on Jokic.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Actually, I just placed a bid on Jokic, and I assume I'm winning right now, although sometimes we get outbid pretty quickly. But as of right now, I am winning 5 shares of Nikola Jokic, and his price is very, very cheap at the moment. Follow-up question on Jimmy Butler. So you had said before that if Butler ultimately gets ruled in, you think that his ownership is going to be too low because people won't have time to react to the news, especially when it comes after lock. People don't really like to mess around with their lineup. So are you making it a priority to get to more of Jimmy Butler now?
Oh, hell yeah. On FanDuel especially. Like, absolutely. So small forward on FanDuel, it's a different ball game. Like on DraftKings, because we do have those good punts at small forward and you can kind of the multi-positional eligibility, like Jimmy Butler's still a good option over there as a spend up, but where the positions are solidified, Jimmy Butler, like you basically put him and Kawhi as like your top 2 spend ups. I'm going to get to more Butler now than I have of Kawhi. Just because of the way that the salaries work out. And because I think that he just becomes somebody who has 55 point upside. I just don't think I've seen it routinely this year. People, when they're game time decisions like this, right up until lock, and now we get this news like after lock, they're not going to react to it quick enough. There's less than half an hour till that game starts. They don't necessarily have the roster flexibility to kind of make it work around and move it. So I'm going to be massively overweight on FanDuel.
Yeah, so I was going to say, I'll give you credit. You sold me on it. I was going to swap to Butler anyway, but I'll up him in a few extra lineups, and we'll call them Eric lineups. Fair?
Right. Well, do I get equity in these lineups? That's really the question. I don't give a crap if you're going to take my take. It's just I want to get paid for having a good take when he goes for 60.
Nope.
Okay, good talk. Glad we had
Yep.
it.
Nope.
Okay.
Nope. But you get credit for it. And
Thank
how about
you.
this? You know what I'll tell people to do? I'll tell people to go follow Eric Lindquist on Twitter because I said Eric does not have enough followers on Twitter, and he is deforming his body. His fiance is not sure what she's going to do with him now that he doesn't have eyebrows because she's long said, like, I don't know Melanie personally, but I always have gotten the sense that she's really an eyebrow type girl. And I had a feeling that she was only with you for your eyebrows. And now I know that's really at risk. And that's why people should go follow Eric on Twitter, because this is the kind of things that he's sacrificing for our entertainment, guys. And really for no reason. There was nobody who was asking him to shave his eyebrows. He just went ahead.
I sold it to her as if like, hey, this is for the brand. It's not for the brand. I don't have a brand. You can't have 1,500 Twitter followers and have a brand. That's like a cult following. I don't want a cult following. I want a group following. I want to be a part of. So help me be initiated into the Awesemo community as we go here. It's been long enough that I've had to sit behind Greg and his massive following that he has over there. But I appreciate it very much so. Very much so.
It's all relative. There's a point where I first joined Twitter where I would think I have a lot of Twitter followers, and now I'm like, I don't have any Twitter followers. And also, you think of it in like the broad spectrum of things, where it's like, oh, really? Like 8,000 people in the entire world know who I am. It's a very small percentage of people. There's like,
we're not
there's
Selena Gomez or Taylor Swift. Like,
no,
we don't have that following for sure. There's a Ben Folds song called "There's Always Somebody Cooler Than You," and it's just what it is. There's always somebody cooler than us. And probably because, we're chatting here DFS, maybe not many people cooler in our circles. Let it be known. We get to talk sports every day. We get to talk jock market every day. We get to talk about all these great things. And I couldn't ask for much more than that. But for the most part, yes, there's always somebody out there that's probably cooler than us. Hard to believe, though. Hard to believe.
Yeah. Not right now, because I'm winning 5 shares of Nikola Jokic still. So that's I'm a 10 out of 10 on the cool meter. There's nothing cooler than that.
Marshall White said in the chat, initiation is 2 broken legs.
two broken legs and no eyebrows.
Oh God. Yeah, that made me laugh. Enjoyed it. Wrapped in dollar bills. Wow. Okay. Well, back to jock market we go.
All right. So are there any players that you are bidding on? I have, like I said, I'm winning shares on Jokic. I'm scrolling through to see who else is cheap right now. Surprising that people were so quick to bid up Vucevic. He is up at a IPO of $9.10. Right now we have the fair IPO projection for him at $8.40. So already people aggressively bid up Vucevic. That's pretty surprising to me, especially when you see that people aren't really getting to Jokic. They're not bidding up Randall right now. Who else is cheap? Trae Young, still only $1. That is clearly somebody to bid on. That's something I'm going to do right now.
Yeah. So, I mean, Chris Boucher is as soon as that news comes out, like if it's 5 minutes before lock, like if it's 4:25 out here, 7:25 your time, how much would you be willing to fire on Chris Boucher? Because if he doesn't, you're going to be getting $1, that you're dead in the event that he doesn't play, but what would be the number where you would still probably be going to him? Because looking at, you can't just say, oh, what's his fair IPO price? Because you have the risk of getting legitimately $0. We just got, as I say that, oh, the gods look down upon us and shine on me. Chris Boucher available to play.
All right. So let's talk through that, because that's now an interesting situation. First, how much do you expect? By the way, did where I'm not seeing that anywhere yet.
I have.
Oh, there we go. All right, I just saw.
I have a Twitter thing.
Yeah. All right. So there we go. Chris Boucher.
Writers, yeah.
Chris Boucher is in. How many minutes do you expect him to play today? And also, by the way, Aaron Baines upgraded to probable. That's very unexpected.
Oh, that's so gross. Oh, you could tell me 19 or 35 and I would believe you either way. Aaron Baines, are you joking me? Do you want to see me tilt, YouTube chat? Is that what you came here for? No, we're not going to tilt. I'm fine. But that's really, really annoying. Oh man, Aaron Baines now probable. So that's happening. Aaron Baines is playing. So get Freddie Gillespie out of your lineups. I'm pretty sure that's the first thing I'm going to do. I would much rather be waiting on Kaminsky, but this is the nice thing. Having somebody like Gillespie or somebody else, we can easily get off of that. That's not a crazy pivot to have to make. But Gillespie becomes the first guy that I just am that was in play for me. I'm assuming he still plays. It's not like Baines is going to play crazy minutes, but you went from a team that could have been 8 to now is going to be 10. And that is a big, big difference. It's gigantic. And so there's a chasm between the minutes that I was expecting for Boucher with this news, and now with Baines coming in there, there is some uncertainty there, but I think I'm willing to embrace it. So long as that ownership doesn't go nuts, I'm still going to be over the field on it because he's going to have the usage there, but it's just so surprising they played him 37 minutes out of the gate, first time out. I'm going to still put him in for, I think 27 sounds about right. And he's still going to get to a meaningful number of my lineups.
By the way, so Chris Boucher, let's give the old ownership page an old refresher-oo, and let's see what we have here. Chris Boucher projected for 17% ownership. I'm getting overweight to the field on that number. So DraftKings, 17 on Boucher. Fanduel, Chris Boucher is projected for 14.6% projected ownership. So Chris Boucher, get overweight to him on both of those numbers for sure. By the way, something else, guys. I forgot to do this read earlier. We've got a gold rush going on right now. For anybody who's new, signing up for Awesemo Plus for the first time, we have nearly every DFS sport in season right now. And with NBA and NHL heading into the playoffs, it is a great time to be a DFS player. So pick up your first month of Awesemo Plus Platinum for 25% off and use the promo code GOLDRUSH. That is the code GOLDRUSH. That is all one word. So GOLDRUSH. And that is going to include full access to all premium content and tools on Awesemo.com for basically everything we have there. So player projections, ownership projections, premium Slack chat, lineup builder, everything else we have there. The offer is valid through 5/20. Stop guessing, start winning. Join Awesemo Plus today. So that is the promo code Gold Rush. Kind of got lost in that with all the injury news that we were getting before, but
It's fair.
All right, onward and forward. How much Chris Boucher are you comfortable with? Because my initial reaction is I kind of want all the Boucher.
I still kind of do too, and I'm torn. So I mean, I had 78% loaded up in DK, and I'm gonna come down from that a little bit, but not by much. The one thing it does is Gary Trent's completely off the board on DK for me. He was already like super low meaningful. Like I got like 1% basically at his number. He's irrelevant to me. The tough guy that I'm just questioning, like I'm thinking about what this starting lineup's going to look like. I mean, is it going to be Baines and Boucher? I'm assuming it's going to be Boucher starting at the 5. Baines comes in off the bench. I think that has to make me take a guy like Freddie Gillespie's off the board for me, I think. Would you agree with that or not?
Yes.
Okay, Freddie Gillespie's gone. He went from being in 17% of my lineups to now I have 0%.
My expected starting lineup, I think it is going to be Malachi Flynn, Gary Trent Jr., Yuta Watanabe, Kem Birch, and Chris Boucher.
I think that sounds exactly correct. And then I just have to put in Aaron Baines for stupid minutes. Stupid Aaron Baines. Is this serious?
I'm not convinced he's definitely going to play. I think he's more likely to play than not play. But I don't think he's going to play real significant minutes. I think if anything, he's probably more there as just an emergency option in case somebody gets hurt or somebody isn't feeling well or something like that.
So weird. He's 3K though. Aaron Baines is 3K. You got like 22 minutes out of the middle of nowhere from him. So I'm not going to even like sit around and say that like Aaron Baines is not like that's like a galaxy brain play that I don't think you need to make, but he is 3K flat on DK. If I doubt he's in the starting lineup by any means, but if you were to like miraculously find his way there and then they brought like Kem Birch off the bench, that makes no sense to me. I'm going to stop talking. I don't think that matters.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, I would change my tune if Aaron Baines was starting, but as of now, I wouldn't roster him if he was $1,000.
Yeah, I don't think I would either, probably, unless, again, he would have to be starting. And looking around, though, I mean, this just sucks for Boucher. Like, he had basically unabated run there, him and Birch, and then it was going to be Freddie Gillespie. I was going to rotate him in. Yeah, I can't have any Gillespie now. All
right, I opened up the Slack chat to see if there are any questions there. No, there's just a lot of GIFs being posted in general chaos. So nothing I can help anybody with there. That is just arguing apparently about GIFs. So
Jalen Harris, somebody asked about Jalen Harris here too. I think he's okay to still be getting to. He's not going to be directly affected by this. I think Jalen Harris might actually be a decent fantasy basketball player going forward here. Right around 0.92 fantasy points per minute here. Still going to get around 24 minutes. He's under 4K. You can take some shots, but I think he's just going to be a little bit more popular than what you want to get to at this point in time. I'm a little bit under the field. I was over the field drastically a second ago. But now having Boucher there, having everybody else there, I think it's going to take away a little bit from some of that usage. He had 26% usage, 21% usage the last two. Still going to be all right with having a little bit of him.
Who do you believe is the second most popular player to roster on DraftKings behind Chris Boucher from the Raptors?
From the Raptors? I'm just going to guess because I don't have it up. Yuta Watanabe now? Is that who it would be?
It is Malachi Flynn. So we have Chris Boucher. Chris Boucher projected for 16.6% ownership. Malachi Flynn, 12.6%. Then Jalen Harris, 9.6%. Then it's just a whole bunch of guys in like the 5 to 10% range. You know, Freddie Gillespie, Gary Trent Jr. Watanabe's actually way lower than that. He's down at 2%, but I think that's probably with the assumption that Stanley Johnson starts because he started last game. So Still to be seen. The only guy I'm really getting exposure to right now from Toronto, though, is Boucher.
Okay. And that's more than fine. I think Malachi Flynn, plays a different position. The Jalen Harris thing is a price thing, but Malachi Flynn at 5,700 on DK, probably going to be a meaningful piece of this team going forward. Like, it seems like the Raptors like him. So I very highly doubt he gets exceeded like into the mid 30s of minutes, which is kind of where you'd want him at that price tag.
All right, let's see. Any news? I feel like anytime we talk just unabated for 3 minutes, I assume that some news item has come out. But
let's take a look at the jock market here with it, because I think as we get closer, so getting closer to this lock, is there anybody that really like sticks out for you as somebody that with that Toronto news, like Boucher, how much should we be really factoring him in? Because he has a really wide range of outcomes. We're kind of happy to embrace it because that ownership isn't up there in like a meaningful way. But is there any other Raptor that you would be happy with? Like $2.90 is his fair IPO price. I don't think
he's not on the jock market.
Oh, he's not on the jock market. Oh, that's so sad. I was so excited about that. All right. Don't want any other Raptors then. Probably going to take some of that exposure. What do you think about Karl-Anthony? What is his number? Because I don't have a ton of him in DFF. $1.30. He's going for $2.10. So probably a pass for me there too. I think we're going to be going for these top end studs. I'm going to be making my Jimmy Butler play. That's really the guy that I'm hoping to get.
That's reasonable. Let's see. Jimmy Butler currently bid up to an IPO price of $6.60. We have Butler project for $8.20. I'm not going to try to outbid you, Jimmy Butler. That is all yours. You could go ahead and try to get him. I was trying to bid on Embiid. I keep getting outbid, but I'm going to keep trying to go to Embiid anyway. Let's see if I can get some shares back. I am really in a battle of egos against whoever is bidding on Jokic with me. It's a point of pride now.
Man,
am I winning?
Yourself off and try again.
Am I winning?
No, you're not.
Yeah, I'm winning.
You are winning? Oh,
yeah.
What's it feel like to win? Feels nice.
Yeah, I'm gonna be losing in about 6 minutes though. That's I always because we're always talking while we do it, right? So I always just end up getting outbid on like right before it locks, and we're talking through it, so not able to figure it out while we're doing.
Yep.
It's somebody being clever in the chat where they see us talking and they know who we're bidding on, so they try to outbid us on the at the last second. By the way, starting lineup for Philadelphia 76. Oh no, never mind. Somebody posted news that is not true in this Slack chat, and I thought I'd miss something.
Time out. Give them a nap. Give them a nap.
The YouTube chat. I mean, in the YouTube chat, it's already gone by, so it is what it is.
Oh, be careful. Be careful over there.
Somebody DM'd me on Twitter and called me Eric. That's upsetting.
Well, I get called Greg every other show, so you're going to be fine. You're going to be just fine.
Yeah, I mean, hey, good for you. That's an upgrade.
I know. Well, that's true. I become much cooler. That's for sure.
Yeah, I got 2 full eyebrows. I got the whole package over here.
I hate you.
Let's what players are you winning bids on currently? I'm still winning Jokic.
I just hate you. That's all the analysis. No, I feel good. I've got Jimmy Butler still. I'm still getting some of it. No, as I pull up my phone, definitely got outbid. So I think people are doing this on purpose now. Like there's a conspiracy theory going on where it's like we could say anybody. Like I want somebody to bid up on DeAndre Bembry. How about that? Somebody bid on I want DeAndre Bembry right now. And I want somebody. I don't want DeAndre Bembry. That's not a fun game. I don't want people to lose money. I want people to win. Gary Trent. All the Raptors are passes. Metu 355. Oof. God, that's much higher than the fair IPO price, but I could still see a path there. Rashawn Holmes coming in at 429. That's got to be low, correct?
By the way, not to get you, have you seen this start that Justin Holiday is off to?
Don't tell me.
In 5 minutes, Justin Holiday has scored 12 points. He is 4 of 5 from 3 in the first 5 minutes of the game. Big Justin Holiday game incoming.
That's not ideal for me. It's not ideal for me.
Yeah, Doug McDermott 0 for 1. That is his entire stat line. No personal fouls.
0 of him. So that's the fade. That was the tournament fade today.
And we've got Pacers off to a 21-14 lead right now, but all right, let's see. Where do we have other guys who are still at $1? Let's see. We've got 7 minutes until the IPO period ends on Jock Market. By the way, guys, if you've not deposited on Jock Market, use the promo code Awesemo20. Get a $20 bonus on your first deposit at the Jock Market. Let's see if there's any guys going for $1 that maybe shouldn't be going for $1. We do see that pretty often. But no, players are starting to get bid up now. Scrolling, nobody for $1. You'd mentioned Karl-Anthony before. He's now $2.50 is fair IPO price. Is there anybody who you see scrolling down that maybe is a value going for cheaper than they should be going for?
So the guy that stuck out to me was Rashawn Holmes, who we have around a $6 IPO. He's coming in for $5 right now. And I think that there's some massive upside. As we had talked about, I think they are still looking to be competitive here. It's a phenomenal game environment. Him and Metu have been starting next to each other. I do like getting to a piece of Rashawn Holmes here.
For me, that seems like a very cheap price for Clint Capella. $730. Let's see who else. A lot of these guys are bid up to around the same number now. Like there's a lot of guys that are in that 5 to 6 range. Ben Simmons at 485. What do we have as a fair IPO price for him? 690. So Ben Simmons, I think, is somebody who's been on 485. I'll try to get over the top of that. Am I winning?
I don't mind that whatsoever. I'm winning on my home shares, so that's good. Hopefully those can stay intact. That would be nifty. Nikola Jokic still under at $12. I think you can still be going that direction too. I mean, the fair IPO price, he's got the highest projection of the grouping, $14.50, coming in well under that still. Randall surprisingly up to $10. He's past his $8.70 fair IPO price. That Vooch one really is perplexing to me. That is for sure not right to be looking at. Joel Embiid, we didn't even necessarily think he was going to play. We didn't have anything out there for him. I think he'd be close to the $10 tag as well. If we knew he was going to play 31, 32 minutes, I think he would definitely have to be considered for a top 4 finish as well. Can do a lot of work quickly. So looking at his tag there, right now, 1025, I could do a tiny bit more than that. I'll go get a share of him here.
All right. I'm still winning on Jokic for now. I feel good about Jokic. I'm at 1222 right now. That's have
fantastic.
$14.50 is the fair IPO price for Jokic. And like I said before, I think people might be a little wary of that game time decision tag. Now watch him just get ruled out right after it locks. But
honestly, don't say things like that.
When somebody's probable as a game time decision, doesn't bother me. No real concern. So I fully expect Jokic to go out and play today. And it looks like some people at least are afraid of that game time decision tag. By the way, Bucks Pacers. The Bucks have gone from down 10, I think they were down, to now up 1. Quick start for Giannis Antetokounmpo, 9 points, 2 rebounds, an assist, and a steal. And then on the Pacers side of the game, Justin Holiday playing well, and Domantas Sabonis has 4 points, 4 assists, and 2 rebounds in the first 8 minutes of the game. And TJ McConnell, 4 points and 2 assists right now. Nothing else really of note happening. As for news, oh, cool. I just saw the news item come across. I was like, oh, is this going to be important? And then it's just a bunch of Rockets news for tomorrow. But all right, a super chat here from Gilberry. What are your thoughts on Joval's upside? Tonight is an important game for the Grizzlies. Is he a solid GPP option? I am not getting to Jonas Valanciunas right now. I do think that there is some upside in him, but I'm not totally confident in how healthy he is. And there's just a bunch of other center options I want to get to on the slate. But are you getting to Jonas Valanciunas right now?
I'm not. And I'm an absolute mark for that guy. It just comes down to the rest of that position. I prefer Boucher for cheaper on Fanduel and DraftKings. I prefer going to Metu on Fanduel at the center position. There's just a lot of guys that I prefer. I'm not sure exactly how hard Memphis is going to go out there. What is Memphis's? I suppose that is the important part to look at, because his minutes were trending way up of late. He had been playing some mid-30s minutes there for quite a while there, and it kind of can fluctuate based on matchup. So having Holmes out there, but then that second unit, like Damian Jones coming in, basically a 1-for-1 center, like, yeah, he's big enough. I think they might keep JVL out there for a little bit longer, but how hard are they really looking at pushing him in this game?
Yeah, so to me, the real issue with Jonas Valanciunas is just the price point. He is over 8,000. He is 81, I think it is, on DraftKings. Let me look. Yeah, 81 on DraftKings. On Fanduel, Valanciunas is priced to 8,200. So over 8,000 on both sites. I have him projected for 41.3 fantasy points tonight. So yeah, points per dollar, whatever, looks about a fair price. Good matchup against the Kings. But once again, I mean, when somebody just looks about fairly priced on this slate, that makes it hard for me to get to them in terms of any sort of optimal lineup build, because I have a bunch of guys who are projected to be, way better than 5x value. So Valanciunas, not somebody I'm going to be getting to.
So they clinched the play-in berth, so they're for sure set there, but they got to try to get to 8th. So Memphis has every reason to go out and throw J-Val out there. I'm going to get to a tiny bit more of him. I'm going to get to a tiny bit more over on DK. I was already getting to a negligible amount, but there's still an upside. Like at that price, 8,100, so long as he's playing. I mean, that 36 minutes the last two, the Pelicans game 27, but he was in some foul trouble early in that game as well. I remember that because he had the 5 blocks in that outing. He's routinely somebody I'm over the field on. And again, Sacramento, there's definitely an upside there.
All right. By the way, I forgot about even mentioning the Clippers Hornets game going on. That game is tied 20-20 in the first quarter. It seemed with everything going on in the DFS slate that this game was somewhat irrelevant, but I mean, there are good players in this game. We've got Paul George. He's off to a pretty decent start. He was a little more viable on FanDuel than on DraftKings, but either way, that game is also happening 20-20, and nobody off to a really exceptional start in that game. But all right, we've got a minute left here, Eric. What are your closing thoughts? Also, has the IPO period closed? Do we win anybody?
Oh, it closed, and I got my Rashawn Holmes right there at $5.50, which feels pretty nice.
All right. Of course, I got outbid on Nikola. Oh no, I didn't. I won Jokic. I have 3 shares of Jokic at a. Let's see. What do I have him at?
Under $14. I think that's what matters.
I have him for $12.92. I am pretty happy with that. So, hey, that is going to close it for us. Thank you guys very much for watching. If you haven't done so already, follow at Eric Lindquist on Twitter. Also, like the video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and stick around because we do have MMA strategy show coming up later on in the night.